Oh, it's me. I'm not dead. Or maybe I was. Who knows? I could have been caught in the midst of politics and drama that resulted in my death, only to be brought back 13 to 16 years later in order to solve a murder mystery and maybe even fall in love. That could have happened, but none of that matters now. Yeah, all that matters is that I'm here to record way too much content, recapping the plot of another fantastic book. That's right, this time we're talking about The Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, or Mo Dao Zu Shi, by MXTX. This is the book she wrote after Scumvillain. I'm off down my single wooden plank bridge.
User is not alone so long as this system has yet to complete her route. And while this system will let it slide for now, points will be deducted if host does not stay on topic.
That sounded like a threat. And you're not taking it back. Okay, let's get started. This book is rated 17+, and I will post the content warnings along with this episode. Let's do this. Okay, Mo Dao. Where to start with Mo Dao? So, MDZS was the very first Danmei novel I had ever read. It's actually the first Xianxia Cultivation novel I ever read. My first introduction to flying swords and golden cores, my total gateway into this wonderful, magical world. Would I recommend the book as a good gateway into the genre? Yes and no. Yes, because of the sheer number of adaptations. If reading isn't your thing, don't worry about it. There's a manhwa, 3 seasons of a complete donghua, an animated short series, a Chinese audio drama, a 50-episode live-action drama, and recently, there was even a Japanese stage play. And that's only the completed stuff. There's also a Japanese manga in progress, and not to mention the overwhelming amount of fan projects. In terms of Danmei as a genre amongst all fandom, MDZS stands at the front. I won't show all my cards yet, but let me just say MDZS got AO3 to change their rules for the first time pretty much ever. It also got the Chinese government to ban 2 actors from interacting with each other in public. Mo Dao is a very interesting series, even outside the narrative of the story. Oh, but I got a little distracted, so I also wouldn't recommend it as your first introduction. Mostly because it's so confusing if you've never read anything in the setting or genre before. Every major character has their given name, their courtesy name, and a title, and the entire book switches back and forth between the past and the present. Like, I went into it knowing I was probably gonna be confused, but damn. So I started with the donghua. I watch a ton of anime, and a lot of people liked Wang Xian on Tumblr, so me and 2 of my friends decided to get into it together. There were only 2 seasons of the donghua out at the time, but I was so confused, literally the whole time. Like, I didn't even clock the flashback for almost 3 episodes. I admit that that's mostly on me, but still. Then my friends and I started watching The Untamed, the live-action drama. I have to admit, I could follow that a bit better, but I also knew that The Untamed changed a bunch of stuff. Plus, we were watching the drama very slowly. Scheduling's a bitch, y'all know. So I picked up the book. By this time, I'd figured out all the names and titles for our 2 main leads, thank God, but the rest of them? Shilian, help me, you guys. And it's not even just the characters. So, the English translation of the novel is called Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, but the donghua and mini-shorts are under the name Founders of Diabolism, and the live-action is called Chen Qingling, or The Untamed, and that was the highest-grossing Chinese drama pretty much ever, so a lot of people refer to the story like that. So, to keep things easy, I will mostly refer to the title as MDZS. That's just how I call the series in my head, personally. One of my friends was reading the whole thing with the fan wiki open, which really helped her follow what was going on, but she saw every single spoiler possible. And I didn't want spoilers, so I was just raw-dogging it. I made it through the book, the big mystery mastermind reveal happened, and I was like, who? I literally had no clue what was going on. Like, I knew Lan Wenji and Wei Wuxian were super in love, and a bunch of people were mad at a bunch of stuff, but, yeah, I didn't really get it. I do now, don't worry. And if you're just like me, then maybe our little book club can help. There's so much to talk about, but for now, let's start chapter 1. The book starts with the super iconic line, "Rejoice, Wei Wuxian is dead." Very no one mourns the wicked vibes. In this world, there are currently 4 major sects. They are denoted by the family that runs the sect and the province where they run it from. So we have the Lan clan in Gusu, the Jiang clan in Yunnan, the Jin clan in Lanling, and the Nie clan in Qinghe. Something called the Siege of the Burial Mounds just happened, during which the 4 major sects worked together and now some guy's dead. But not just any guy, random townsperson I'm informing the latest news. Wei Wuxian, or the Yiling Patriarch as he was known, was evil. Sure, he helped out a bunch during the Sunshot campaign, but he was playing with demonic energy. Did you hear? They say he developed an entire cultivation system around using it, even raising an army of the dead. That stuff's nothing but darkness and evil. No wonder he ended up dead. But how did it actually happen, you might ask? Well, there are 2 major theories. First, that when he destroyed his most powerful artifact, the Yin Tiger Tally, Wei Wuxian lost control of his demonic powers and then was devoured by the very corpses that he brought back to life. The other theory was that it was done personally at the hands of the sect leader of Yunmeng Jiang. The Jiang family actually adopted Wei Wuxian. They raised him as their own, and he and sect leader Jiang were said to be quite close. But by the end, it seemed like no one had a good impression of Wei Wuxian. To quote the book, the Yiling Patriarch had the ability to topple the earth and move mountains and seas. At least, that's what the legend said. It would be no great task for him to resist soul summoning if he desired it. If his spirit returned in the future, if he took over a body and was reincarnated, then the cultivation world, the entire mortal world in fact, would be cursed to face even greater vengeance, sinking into an endless storm of darkness and blood. There was no body found, and everyone's been saying that none of the sects have succeeded in recalling his soul. So maybe his soul really was shattered. There's really no way to tell but time. Sorry, that was a lot of information. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense yet, but we'll get into it, I promise. I think the biggest takeaway is just that this guy named Wei Wuxian has died. This is pretty much the center of the timeline. I mentioned a bit in the intro all about the time jumps, and this is why. The story of MDZS splits between 2 plots of the same characters. One in the past, all leading up to this moment, the death of Wei Wuxian. The other starts 13 years later with his rebirth, but we'll get into that in Chapter 2. First, let's make some rules. I'm going to be calling everything that happens before Wei Wuxian's death the flashback arc, and everything after it the real-time arc. As for where we are in those arcs, I will explain relative to the big points. For example, 5 years before Wei Wuxian's death, or 2 weeks after Wei Wuxian's rebirth. With all that in place, let's do some more world building. Yay! So, a bit more about the different sects. In this world, sect politics and mortal politics are one and the same. The sects manage each of their regions and the people living in it. Cultivators are not. So, most places in the book will also state what sect they are closest to. Each sect has a sort of headquarters in their region. Starting with Yunmeng. This is where our protagonist was raised. They operate out of Lotus Pier. When I think of Yunmeng, I think of purple robes, lotuses, and boats. Then there's Gusulan, where our male lead is from. Their base is in the mountains called the Cloud Recesses. They're known for their extreme discipline and are distinguishable by the ribbons they wear on their forehead. When I think of Gusulan, I think of white or blue robes, music, and bunny rabbits. Next is Lanling Jin. These guys are rich and opulent. They operate out of a golden palace called Carp Tower. And last is Qinghe Nie. They wield giant sabers and their headquarters is called the Impure Realm. Their robes are kind of olive green, and when I think of them, I think rocks and bushes. There's also another sect that I haven't mentioned, the Qishang Wen clan. These guys are basically the Fire Nation from Avatar. There used to be 5 major sects, but Qishang Wen was destroyed after the Sunshot campaign. What's the Sunshot campaign? Oh, you'll see too much of it during the flashback arc, so I'll save that for later. Okay, hopefully that's enough info dumping up front. Let's get into the story. 13 years after his death, Wei Wuxian wakes up again. When Wei Wuxian had died, he never expected to come back, so what was going on? Well, let me tell you. There was a boy named Mo Xuanyu. The Mo family was pretty well off in the area. Mo Xuanyu was the result of the second daughter of the Mo family having a tryst with the former sect leader of Lanling Jin, Jin Guanshan. Sorry about all this information. It's just gonna keep coming. So, Jin Guanshan was an infamous womanizer with tons of known and unknown children. A man whore, if you will. He didn't stick around, and the second young Miss Mo was put to shame. As her son grew up, they say that he had some potential for cultivation, so the Jin clan sent for him, and Mo Xuanyu began to study at Carp Tower. But Mo Xuanyu was also known to be a bit of a lunatic. He was eccentric, and he always wore heavy white face powder with large red splotches on both of his cheeks, and he was a cut sleeve, a known male homosexual. Okay, so there's not a ton of it in the actual, plot of the book, but there is a fair amount of homophobia in this world, so be warned. Mo Xuanyu was publicly kicked out of Carp Tower for harassing another disciple. He returned to the Mo estate, but the scandal was too much for his mother and she died. First Lady Mo had been running the estate for some time now, so she took her nephew in as a ward. But the house didn't treat him well. They treated him badly before, but with his mother dead, it only got worse. Which is how we got to this. Mo Xuanyu performed a forbidden ritual. He sacrificed his own soul and all hope of reincarnation to call on a spirit to take over his body and carry out his wishes. He drew the entire array in his own blood to create enough resentful energy to call on the most evil soul he could think of, that of the Yiling Patriarch. And that's how Wei Wuxian ended up alive again, in a new body. He has a series of crisscrossing wounds on his arm. This is part of the ritual too. They're not bleeding, but Wei Wuxian knows that they won't heal until Mo Xuanyu's final wish is complete. It's too bad that Mo Xuanyu destroyed his soul, because now Wei Wuxian can't ask him exactly what he's here to do. Wei Wuxian was aware of how the world saw him, but that didn't make it true. Believe it or not, he wasn't keen on walking around murdering people. Oh well, there's no way to reverse it, so he's stuck in the world of the living for now. Mo Xuanyu's family at the Mo estate are all kind of dicks. Wei Wuxian found out very quickly. His cousins come to harass him all the time, and now they're throwing cold leftovers at Wei Wuxian instead. Wei Wuxian leaves Mo Xuanyu's shabby hut to walk around the estate. Most people avoid him. Let it be known that Wei Wuxian is going to take full advantage of his body's reputation as that village lunatic. The servants talk about walking corpses and a prominent sect coming to investigate. Wei Wuxian goes to investigate too. Sure enough, he finds Madame Mo and the other family members hosting a number of disciples in funeral white robes. It's the Gusu Lan sect. So, remember that Wei Wuxian died during the siege of the burial mounds, where all 4 major sects came to make sure he died. So, he's pretty keen to avoid all the major sects. But these all look like junior disciples. Plus, he's in Mo Xuanyu's body, so it's probably fine to help out a bit. Probably, right? Wei Wuxian is having a bit too much fun, actually. He throws this huge fit in the hall, like a full-blown rolling on the ground screaming to get them to let him stay and listen. The Lans have such a pristine elegance to them, so there's no way the Mo will beat him while they're around. With a few suggestions and phrases, Wei Wuxian makes it very clear how Mo Xuanyu was treated. He demands that all his broken things be replaced and his stolen things returned. Wei Wuxian makes a huge scene saying that he would cut his cousin's arm off if he ever dared to steal from him again. Unfortunately, just embarrassing them and standing up to them isn't making the curse marks heal at all. Does Wei Wuxian really have to kill this whole family? Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For now, the Mo estate has been having problems with fierce corpses. Wei Wuxian decides to watch what the Lan juniors will do. To his absolute aghast, they start hanging up black flags, spirit attraction flags. These are stitched with talismans to lure beasts using demonic energy like fierce corpses. They are also really handy in herding them away from civilians during a night hunt, or even just bringing the spirits out in the open. The flags seem really useful, right? Wei Wuxian thinks so too. After all, he was the one who invented them. The reason he's so surprised to see them is that the spirit attraction flags, like everything else he invented, were deemed as evil as him. Guess the cultivation world had a change of heart while he was dead. While he's checking the flags, Wei Wuxian gets caught by the 2 Lan juniors leading this mission. Let's meet them. Lan Sizhui and Lan Jingyi. These 2 are so cute. So, Lan Sizhui is the head disciple of the Gusu Lan sect. He learned from the great Hang Wanjun himself. He's calm and responsible and as upright as a little radish. And then there's Lan Jingyi. He's Sizhui's best friend. He's also known very lovingly as the least Lan Lan. The Gusulan sect is known for tranquility and the 3,000 rules they all follow. But Lan Jingyi is loud and crass, and at one point of the story, he eats a chicken leg. That point isn't really important, but it's one of the first things I think of when it comes to Jingyi. These two make up half of what the fandom calls the Junior Quartet during the real-time arc. I love the juniors. I'll introduce the other two as they appear in the story. Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi try to convince Wei Wuxian to move to a safer area when people start shouting. Specifically, they're shouting for the murdering lunatic to be brought forward. And then Wei Wuxian gets dragged into the main courtyard. There is so much hubbub. Young Master Mo, aka Mo Xuanyu's shitty cousin, got murdered in some evil, horrific manner, his corpse ugly and disfigured. Madame Mo is slumped in the corner before she's charging at Wei Wuxian with a dagger. With all the junior disciples around, she's easily stopped, but she's fully convinced that Wei Wuxian, or rather Mo Xuanyu, is the killer. Her evidence? Young Master Mo's arm is missing, and everyone here witnessed Mo Xuanyu threaten to take that arm earlier that very same day. But this isn't Wei Wuxian's first rodeo. He actually gets a little nostalgic over being called a maniac. But other than that, pays no mind to the accusation. Instead, he goes to search the body, and he finds a spirit attraction flag. Young Master Mo must have stolen it from the Lan formation and was ill-equipped to handle what came after him. So really, it was his own damn fault. Things are still tense as people file out of the courtyard. Wei Wuxian is going to take the opportunity to investigate the corpse further when there's more screaming. Madame Mo's husband had only stepped out before dropping dead, and now his corpse matched his son's. Shriveled, disfigured, and missing an arm. Something truly evil is lurking. Looking on the bright side, 2 of the curse marks on Wei Wuxian's arm have faded. And he didn't even have to kill anybody. Hooray for outsourcing! At the same time, Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi send a signal out for help. Whatever is plaguing the Mo household is far too evil and powerful for the junior disciples to handle on their own. We'll get back with the consequences of this action in just a bit.
Wink, wink.
Wei Wuxian's kind of at an impasse. On one hand, he can't leave the Mo house yet. There are still people who need to die to satiate Mo Xuanyu's final wish. On the other hand, if he waits for the Lan reinforcements to show up, he runs the risk of being exposed as Wei Wuxian. The ghost here is pretty ferocious, so it might kill everyone for the curse for him, but who's to say it won't also kill a bunch of innocent people too? He might just have to defeat the ghost before the Lan reinforcements show. Just then, the servant that was supporting Madame Mo, who had fainted, grabbed his own throat and squeezed until there was an audible crack, and he fell down too. Dead. So it's the arm. Something sweeps over the room, extinguishing all the lights. Lan Jingyi does his best to keep everyone from panicking. Chaos would only make things worse. Lan Sijue activated an illumination talisman, and Wei Wuxian could look around again. Sure enough, the servant's arm was now missing. It's strange that, during all the ruckus, Madame Mo had not stirred at all. Unless she was already dead. His eyes traveled down from her face to her hands. Her arms were hanging by her side, mostly hidden in the sleeves, revealing only the tips of her fingers. The fingers of her right hand were snow white and slim, truly the hand of a woman who lived in privilege, without the hardship of labor. However, the fingers of her left hand were longer and thicker than those of the right. The knuckles were curled, filled with strength. How was that the hand of a woman? It was clearly the hand of a man. "Hold her down," Lan Sijue shouted. The youths had already twisted Madame Mo's arm back in a hold. With a "forgive me," Lan Sijue pulled out a talisman. He was ready to slap it down when Madame Mo's left arm twisted at an impossible angle, aiming for his throat. The only way for a living human to twist their arm that way would be if their bones were broken. The hand's movements were fast, and it would have seized his neck had it not been for Lan Jingyi tackling Lan Sijue with a loud "gah" and blocking the attack for him. There was a flash of firelight. That hand had only just grabbed Lan Jingyi's shoulder when green flames flared to life at the same spot. It instantly loosened its grip. Having escaped death, Lan Sijue was just about to thank Lan Jingyi for coming to his rescue when he saw that half of Lan Jingyi's uniform had been burnt to ashes, making him look incredibly unkempt. Flustered and enraged, Lan Jingyi stripped off the unburnt half of his uniform as he looked back and yelled, "Why did you kick me? Stupid lunatic! Did you want me killed?" Wei Wuxian scurried away, hugging his head. "It wasn't me." It was most certainly he who had kicked Lan Jingyi. The outer robe of the Lan family's uniform was tightly embroidered with spells and incantations inside its lining to provide protection. However, the effect would have been nullified after one use when encountering a formidable creature such as this. Under these dire circumstances, Wei Wuxian could only give Lan Jingyi a kick to make him use his body to shield Lan Sijue's neck. Everyone recovers as quickly as possible to keep their guard up, but the spirit has left Madame Mo's corpse. I won't read it out, but the description of her body is pretty graphic. As a whole, I'd say the violence is a tier more graphic than in Scum Villain.
Points deducted.
Seriously, it's just a comparison. One that makes perfect sense, too. Alright, I get it. So, the spirit. It's contained in the left arm. It attaches itself to the living, killing them. In fact, with Madame Mo, it managed to kill off the last name on Wei Wuxian's curse list. All the slashes have healed. The Lan disciples take advantage of the talismans sewn into their outer robes, using them to trap the arm. Also, the flag trap they had set up earlier had trapped a number of fierce corpses. Seeing that the junior's plan wasn't going to last very long, Wei Wuxian decides to take advantage of all his resources. The fierce corpses in the yard are a low level, making them easy to control, but not very strong. They would serve as cannon fodder. He needs more resentment, so he gathers the body of Madame Mo, her husband, and her son. And now we get to see the Grandmaster of demonic cultivation at work. Before his death, Wei Wuxian had indeed developed his own cultivation method using resentful energy instead of spiritual energy. He could recycle the fallen in battle. Basically, he's a necromancer. Back in the day, he would control his corpse army using a flute and musical cultivation techniques. But for now, he'll just have to improvise. Whistling. Luckily, these corpses are all easy to control. The former Mo family attack the arm as Wei Wuxian whistles from the shadows. They are holding up better than the juniors, but are still losing ground. Wei Wuxian continues whistling before the battle is interrupted by the clear notes of a gutian. The Lan clan was well known for their use of musical cultivation. The Lan juniors cheer. Their backup had finally arrived. Wei Wuxian, on the other hand, he knows exactly who's playing the gutian. And it's exactly who he wanted to avoid. He descends from the rooftops, glowing in the moonlight, playing the eradication tone of the Gusu Lan sect. We meet the male lead of the story, introducing the second young master of the Lan clan, Lan Zhan, courtesy name Lan Wenji, title Han Guanjun, the light-bearing lord. For ease, I will call him Lan Wenji. Lan Wenji takes out the corpses and subdues the arm. The fierce corpse problem at Mo Manor has been taken care of. It's unfortunate that the Mo clan has been functionally wiped out. Mo Xuanyu is technically the only one left, but there's no way Wei Wuxian is going to hang around. It's not that Wei Wuxian doesn't like Lan Wenji. At one point, he would have called Lan Wenji his closest friend, but then a whole lot of stuff happened. Don't worry, we'll get into all of that. So for now, Wei Wuxian just doesn't want to face him. Also, if anyone was to clock him as not Mo Xuanyu, Lan Wenji is at the top of the list. As the Lan start wrapping up, Wei Wuxian sneaks away. He finds a donkey and rides away from the Mo estate. It didn't take long for Wei Wuxian to discover that his donkey mount was incredibly bratty and hard to work with. It didn't like listening to him at all, and when it got tired, it would just stop in the middle of the road and refuse to move. He looked like a total lunatic arguing with a donkey on the side of the road, but that doesn't stop other travelers from their own conversations. He overhears a group talking about Dafan Mountain. They are being led there by a compass of ill winds. The device always points towards resentful energy, and it was another invention of the Yiling patriarch. A young girl on the road hands Wei Wuxian an apple, and the donkey lunges for it. Apples are its favorite. So Wei Wuxian dangles the apple in front of it, and they start headed for Dafan Mountain. If there's something worth hunting there, Wei Wuxian wants in. At the base of Dafan Mountain, Fojiao Town is being plagued by a soul-eating fiend. 7 people had fallen victims so far, and it seemed like a lot of the victims were either engaged or recently involved in a wedding. There was one girl who seemed to recover from the soulless comatose state, but she had lost her sanity. She would break out of her rooms and giggle and dance erratically on Dafan Mountain. Wei Wuxian shares the apple with his donkey and keeps gathering information. Lots of cultivators had come to try and find the fiend, including sect leader Jiang. The task is beneath the sect leader, but he's said to be helping someone. Speaking of helping someone, Wei Wuxian hears cries from the forest and rushes to see what happened. A bunch of people have been caught in high-quality immortal binding nets. Just as Wei Wuxian was assessing the best way to get them down, the culprit appears. There was a vermilion mark dotted between the brows of this little young master, and his features were so fine they were almost harsh. He was extremely young, around the same age as Lan Sijue, a mere adolescent. On his back, he carried a quiver of arrows and a long sword shimmering with gold, and in his hand there was a longbow. The embroidery on his robes was indisputably exquisite, swirling together into extraordinary white peonies. The golden threads twinkled delicately in the night. Wei Wuxian marveled inwardly. Rich! This had to be a young master belonging to the Jin clan of Lanling. This little young master had been about to shoot, but when he saw the immortal binding net had only captured humans, disappointment flashed on his face, and he lost his patience. It's you stupid idiots every time. Over 400 immortal binding nets, but it's always the same. Before they manage to catch any prey, dozens of them get wrecked by you lot. The same thought was still foremost in Wei Wuxian's mind. Rich! The youth was frustrated that his prey still hadn't shown itself, so this country bumpkin was a perfect secondary target for venting his anger. He crossed his arms. Stay hanging there so you won't wander around and hinder me again. Once I catch the soul-eating beast, I'll let you guys go, if I remember. If they really hung from that tree for the entire night, unable to move, there would be nothing they could do but have their souls sucked out if the thing wandering Dafan Mountain came upon them. The round-faced girl who had given Wei Wuxian an apple was terrified and wept out loud. Wei Wuxian was sitting cross-legged on the back of the spotted donkey, but when the donkey heard her crying, its long ears twitched. Suddenly, it leapt forth. It even let out a long bray when it did, and if not for that uniquely horrible sound, it would have appeared irresistibly heroic. Caught off guard, Wei Wuxian was thrown off its back and nearly broke his skull from the fall. That youth took a glance at him and briefly appeared stunned before his expression immediately turned into scorn. He pursed his lips. So it's you. The youth saw him and grew annoyed. Get out of here. Just seeing your face disgusts me, damn cut sleeve. In terms of seniority, Mo Xuanyu might have been this boy's uncle or some other elder, and yet he had to suffer such humiliation from a junior. Even if it wasn't for himself, he was currently in Mo Xuanyu's body. Wei Wuxian felt he had the responsibility to humiliate the boy back, so he countered. Didn't your mother teach you any manners? Raging flames of fury flashed in the youth's eyes. He pulled the long sword from his back and glowered. What did you say? The kid lunges for him with his expensive sword, but Wei Wuxian easily evades him and slaps a talisman on his back, immobilizing him. The kid starts yelling, "How dare you! I'll tell my uncle!" And Wei Wuxian's like, "Kid, I don't know you. Who's your uncle?" And then a very angry and very familiar figure steps out of the tree line. I am. Bum-ba-da! Introducing another important player. This is Jiang Cheng. Courtesy name, Jian Wanyin. Title, Sandu Shenshou. I'll be calling him Jiang Cheng. He is the current sect leader of Yunmanjiang sect, and once upon a time, he was Wei Wuxian's adopted brother. And if he's the uncle, then this kid could only be the heir to the Lanling Jin sect, Jinling. Courtesy name, Jin Rulan. Wei Wuxian would know, he named him himself. Jinling was the son of the former heir to the Jin sect, Jin Zhishuan, and Jiang Cheng's sister by blood, Jiang Yanli, both of whom were killed by the Yiling patriarch during his reign of terror. Yeah, so basically, Wei Wuxian's really regretting the comment he made about Jinling's mother now. Okay, side note, sorry, there's so many introductions, and all of them have tons of stuff that get explained in the flashback arc, but I do want to take a second to talk about Jinling. He's kind of known in the fandom as the one with the uncles. Pretty much every major player in this book is technically his uncle. There's this infamous forum post where someone asked to be spoiled on The Untamed, the live-action drama, and the response got turned into a copy pasta. I'll read it to you.
Warning, vague spoilers.
Jinling's uncle dies to bring back Jinling's uncle, who was killed by Jinling's uncle, except not really. So he teams up with Jinling's future uncle-in-law to solve the mutilated body, which turns out to be Jinling's uncle, who was killed by Jinling's uncle. And all of this culminated in a confrontation in which Jinling's uncle, Jinling's future uncle-in-law, Jinling's uncle, and Jinling's uncle confront Jinling's uncle, who is stabbed by Jinling's uncle and then killed by the resentful ghost of Jinling's uncle. And all of this was secretly orchestrated by, drumroll please, Jinling's uncle. Okay, so now you guys know the whole story. Podcast over. No, but for real, we've met a few uncles already. Jiang Cheng and Wei Wuxian are both uncles because of their relationship to his mother. But mostly he has so many uncles because his paternal grandfather was Jin Guanshan, the infamous man whore. Jin Guanshan had so many kids, including Mo Xuanyu, so Wei Wuxian gets to be Jinling's uncle twice over. But all of this is just for fun. If we were to ask Jinling about his uncles, he would probably only talk about two. They had joint custody of him growing up. First is Jiang Cheng. His sister died, and he wasn't going to abandon his nephew. The other we haven't met yet, the current leader of Lanling Jin sect and the chief cultivator, Jin Guanyao. He was another of Jin Guanshan's illegitimate children who showed enough talent to be officially recognized. When Jin Guanshan's only legitimate son died and left behind his son, Jin Guanyao stepped up to help him. We'll get more into the dynamics and dick measuring with all of that later. The last thing I want to mention about Jinling right now is that he's the third part in the junior quartet. Right now, he doesn't have friends, but that's where this is headed. Okay, let's get back to the story. If we look at Wei Wuxian's list of people he would least like to run into, Jiang Cheng is right up there with Lan Wenji. But Wei Wuxian parted from Jiang Cheng in way less favorable circumstances. In fact, Jiang Cheng is widely credited as the one who actually killed Wei Wuxian, even though it was never confirmed. And since his death, Jiang Cheng seemed to be convinced that Wei Wuxian would come back somehow. For the last 13 years, he had been ruthlessly hunting down every rumor and whisper of someone using demonic cultivation techniques. With the help of his spiritual weapon, Zhidian, a lightning whip that could detect possession, it seemed to the world that he would make sure Wei Wuxian could never return. Put a pin in that. Now, Wei Wuxian hasn't shown any kind of demonic cultivation yet, but he did give Jinling a hard time. Also, Jiang Cheng definitely heard that jab at Jinling's mother. He's got murder in his eyes. Zhidian lashes out, but something blocks it. Bichen. I'm gonna keep apologizing. Y'all, there are so many goddamn names in this book. Not only does every character come with 3 names, they pretty much all have named weapons. Jiang Cheng has 2. Bichen is a pure white blade that belongs to none other than Lan Wenji. You'll come to see that most of Jiang Cheng's relationships seem pretty adversary, but Lan Wenji has been at the top of his shit list for decades. Another one for the pinboard. Lan Wenji isn't here by coincidence. Over the years, he had gained a reputation for always going where the chaos is. Behind him, Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi observe. Jiang Cheng isn't here by coincidence either. Normally, he would let Jinling manage himself, but he provided most of the 400 spirit nets, and it seemed a mysterious blue light had been destroying them. Lan Wenji takes credit for destroying all of them. Jinling starts being bratty again, so Lan Wenji casts a spell on him, one Wei Wuxian is intimately familiar with. It's a common Lan sect punishment that seals a person's mouth closed for 1 incense stick, or until released.
1 incense stick is approximately 15 minutes.
Lan Wenji is such a petty bitch. Don't let this strong, silent reputation fool you. He knows Jiang Cheng isn't some mindless brute. As pissed off as he is, he's not going to full-on brawl Lan Wenji in the woods for disciplining his bratty nephew. Plus, he's annoyed with Jinling too for wasting all those expensive nets and making him deal with this in the first place. So Jiang Cheng storms off, defeated by propriety, and Lan Wenji walks off with his little ducks like they hadn't stopped at all. Wei Wuxian assumes Lan Wenji stepped in for him as thanks for helping the juniors at Mo Manor, and doesn't think about it any further. Nah, Wei Wuxian has a bunch of feelings of his own to deal with. First, he slaps himself for making a jab at Jiang Yanli, his beloved sister and her precious son. All the rumors say that Wei Wuxian ruthlessly murdered Jiang Yanli and her husband, making the evil Yiling patriarch the sole reason Jinling ended up an orphan. But that's all for the pinboard. But speaking of rumors, Wei Wuxian and Jiang Cheng having a confrontation in front of a captive audience was really not good for Wei Wuxian's state of mind. Immediately, everyone watching them starts whispering. Rumors say that sect leader Jiang and Han Guangjun are always fighting because of the other's relationship with Wei Wuxian before he died. Rumors say that both of them hated Wei Wuxian more than anything. The donkey wanders back to him, so they go down to the river together. Wei Wuxian splashes at the unfamiliar face looking back at him, and for the first time since being forced back into this world of the living, he feels, he cries, and he lets himself fall apart. Ugh. So, I feel as a protagonist, it's easy to write Wei Wuxian off as being very carefree. He likes teasing others and being bratty, and he really likes projecting flirty scoundrel energy. And for sure, I'm analyzing him through the lens of Modao in its entirety, but goddamn, this poor guy. The full picture will come together as we get through the book, but for now, I'll just say that when Wei Wuxian died 13 years ago, he was at rock bottom. And now he's back, and everyone he knew had time to process and move on. He didn't. His best friend doesn't recognize him. His little brother is now a decade older than him. And the only thing anyone knows about the Yiling patriarch is that he was evil incarnate and deserved everything he got. I'm glad MXTX gives Wei Wuxian a well-deserved crash out. Boy, does he need it. But he can't stay here forever. Growing up, Wei Wuxian always tried to live by the Jiang clan motto. Attempt the impossible. The phrase motivates him to stand up and get back to it. It seemed like the Lan Juniors and young Master Jin had headed off to the shrine of the Heavenly Maiden. There is a supposedly naturally formed statue of the Heavenly Maiden in a cave on Dafan Mountain. She's said to grant blessings by dancing to the heavens. The villagers have been praying there for quite a while, bringing offerings too. And then some lightning struck the village's ancestral graves, and strange corpses emerged. And then there was a landslide that made the road more treacherous. But these incidents alone wouldn't have caused the villagers to abandon the shrine. But then 7 people lost their souls after going to pray there. Wei Wuxian rushes into the cave just in time to usher Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi out. Just in time to avoid the statue as it begins to move. He looked around to see if Jinling is there too. He's not, for now. Alright, it's time for Wei Wuxian's first lesson for the juniors. It's a shame only half the quartet is attending, but we gotta start somewhere, right? The villagers had been praying and offering to not a deity, but a soul-stealing fiend. It had escalated into sort of genie monkey paw situation. For example, a greedy man prays for treasure, so the statue grants it. And there's a landslide exposing graves for the robbing. The man tries to take it, and the statue calls on lightning, kills the man, and steals his soul. Another example, a girl is getting married and prays that her husband never strays from her and loves her till he dies. So the statue grants the wish by killing the husband so that he dies loving the girl and then eats the girl's soul. But then her father goes to pray too. He wishes for his daughter to regain her soul. So the statue grants his wish too. Only the girl's soul had been devoured already. The incomplete soul causes her to hysterically dance, mimicking the pose of the statue. The dancing maiden statue emerges from the cave then. Wei Wuxian and the Lans dodge out of the way, and then an arrow flies over their head. It's Jinling! Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi used all their signal flares at Mo Manor and forgot to restock. They call out to Jinling to set off one of his, but he totally ignores them. Lan Wenji and Jiang Cheng were both waiting in town for the kids to handle things, so it looks like they're on their own for now. No worries, Wei Wuxian has always been a very talented improviser. He borrows Lan Sijue's sword and quickly makes himself a bamboo flute, while Jinling has the fiend distracted. With a makeshift conduit and some eerie music, Wei Wuxian should be able to summon something more substantial than the low-level corpses he had at Mo Manor. And right now, firepower is all that he's going for. But in his defense, there's no way he could have actually predicted what answered. A long time ago, back during the peak Yiling Patriarch days, and even before then, Wei Wuxian had some companions. The Yiling Patriarch had a right-hand man, and that was the Ghost General, Wen Ning. As his name suggested, Wen Ning was a fierce corpse, brought back by demonic cultivation. Unlike the standard zombie, Wen Ning had retained his sense, his thoughts, making him all the more powerful. But even though I won't get super into it right now, Wei Wuxian had been sure that Wen Ning's body had been destroyed. So what's he doing here? Maybe we can make some guesses based on the thick, heavy chains that wrap around him.
The chains also make excellent weapons.
Wen Ning also seems pretty out of it. He's mindlessly attacking the biggest threat, which is the dancing maiden statue. That gives Wei Wuxian some time to figure something out. The juniors might have only been toddlers at the time, but they recognized the infamous Ghost General, and more cultivators are arriving at the scene as the battle goes on. Eventually, Wen Ning smashes the statue and destroys the core made out of stolen souls. And now, the biggest threat was Wen Ning. With a swing of his arm, the heavy black chains swept in a circle, knocking all the flying swords away. Then he took a step forward, seized the neck of the person closest to him, and lifted him easily off the ground. Wei Wuxian knew the melody he had played earlier was too urgent, too aggressive, and it had exacerbated Wen Ning's ferocity. He needed to be neutralized, his emotions calmed, and so Wei Wuxian confidently played another tune. This melody was one that came to his mind naturally, gentle and tranquil, a significant contrast to the strange, sharp sound from before. Wen Ning froze at the sound and then slowly turned where the flute was calling him. Wei Wuxian remained still, meeting those pupilless eyes. A moment later, Wen Ning let go. The cultivator fell to the ground. He dropped both his arms and walked step by step towards Wei Wuxian. His head was hung low as he dragged his chains across the ground, appearing somewhat dejected. Wei Wuxian backed away as he played the flute, luring him over. And then they walked for a while like this, retreating into the forest. Suddenly, he smelled the refreshing scent of sandalwood. He backed into someone and felt a sharp pain around his wrist, and the sound of the flute abruptly stopping with it. Oh no, Wei Wuxian thought. When he turned around and looked, he was met squarely with Lan Wangji's eyes. Their color was so light. The man's gaze appeared frozen. Not good. Lan Wangji had personally witnessed him play the flute to control corpses in the past. Lan Wangji had Wei Wuxian firmly gripped in one hand, and Wen Ning stood woodenly not 6 meters away from them. He looked around sluggishly, as if searching for the sound of the flute that had vanished so suddenly. In the forest nearby, firelight and voices began to grow. Wei Wuxian's mind spun rapidly. He came to a decision right there. So what if he's seen it before? There are millions out there who know how to play a flute, and the number of people who tried to learn the Yiling Patriarch's way of controlling corpses with flutes could form an entire sect on their own. I'll deny everything, even if it kills me. He resolutely ignored the hand gripping him, raised his arms, and continued playing the flute. This time, he played even more urgently, as if urging, as if reprimanding. His breath became unsteady, the notes cracking, shrieking, and sharp. Suddenly, he felt Lan Wangji's grip harder. His wrist was going to snap from the force. Unable to withstand the pain, Wei Wuxian's fingers slackened, and the bamboo flute fell to the ground. Thankfully, his orders were clear enough, and Wen Ning retreated rapidly, delving soundlessly into the hauntingly dark forest in an instant, and vanishing without a trace. Wei Wuxian was afraid Lan Wangji would give chase to kill Wen Ning, so he reversed the hold and seized him back. Yet, unexpectedly, Lan Wangji's eyes were locked firmly on him, and he never spared a single look Wen Ning's way. The two stood there thus, clutching each other, face to face as they stared at one another. It was then that Jiang Cheng arrived. Put a giant heart-shaped pin in that one. I promise I'll talk about it later. But some other stuff has to happen first. Namely, we have to deal with a very angry Jiang Cheng. Remember, Jiang Cheng has a reputation for ruthlessly hunting down anyone even whispering about attempting to follow the path Wei Wuxian made. And nothing screams demonic cultivation more than controlling the Ghost General Wen Ning with a flute. So, I'll set the scene. Jiang Cheng went up the mountain because something big was going down, and he was a good uncle above all else. Once he gets there, he calls out for Jinling. A major battle had just gone down, and his stupid nephew didn't call for help when he should have. But he's unharmed. He tries to get someone to tell him what the fuck happened here, and why it seems like half the mountain collapsed. But all he gets are frantic gestures and stuttering. And then there's Wen Ning, the Ghost General, and some guy is playing shitty flute songs at him. And not just anyone, that annoying twink from before. And Lan Wangji is all over this guy. Annoying, Flute, Lan Wangji, Twink? Oh, motherfucker, that's Wei Wuxian. So I mentioned earlier that Zidian is a purple lightning whip, but it's no simple weapon. Zidian has a special ability. Its strike can break possession. It had served him well over the years. He could confirm that none of the demonic cultivators he had captured over the years had any real connection to Wei Wuxian. But now, he'll rip Wei Wuxian out of young Master Mo with his bare hands if he has to. Except that damn Lan Wangji is blocking him again, and the Ghost General escaped. But Jiang Cheng isn't giving up. As soon as the opening reappears, Jiang Cheng evades Lan Wangji and strikes. It's a direct hit. Wei Wuxian goes flying. It's when he recovers and starts loudly complaining that Jiang Cheng finally finds himself lost for words. He was so sure that he had found Wei Wuxian's soul, but Zidian didn't work? Oh, poor Jiang Cheng, you were right on the money, I promise. It's just that Wei Wuxian didn't possess anyone. During the ritual, Mo Xuanyu willingly gave up his body. Even more than that, without Wei Wuxian's soul, Mo Xuanyu's body would be dead. So that's why Zidian didn't work. Jiang Cheng is confused. If that isn't Wei Wuxian, then how is he commanding the Ghost General? And Wei Wuxian? Well, Jiang Cheng might be right about whose soul is in which particular body, but Wei Wuxian is not going to tell him that. Luckily, Mo Xuanyu's reputation as the one who went crazy seems to be confusing Jiang Cheng even more. Okay, this is how Wei Wuxian's getting out of here. Step 1, harass Lan Wangji in front of Jiang Cheng and other such witnesses. Before, the Yiling Patriarch was known as evil incarnate, Wei Wuxian was known as a frivolous, carefree flirt. If you lost track of him, he was sure to be off causing mischief with whatever pretty ladies he could find. Jiang Cheng should remember well he was often the one tracking Wei Wuxian down. So, if he sees Mo Xuanyu, known cut sleeve, living up to his rumors and harassing a peer, then Jiang Cheng should be convinced once and for all that he is who he pretends to be. Step 2, simultaneously harass the ever-upright, fuddy-duddy Lan Wangji. In all the years Wei Wuxian has known Lan Wangji, he's also known the stick up his ass. He has so many first-hand experiences of annoying Lan Wangji. The guy is just so fun to tease and easy to fluster. There's no way Lan Wangji would tolerate someone being this close to him. He'd storm off and not look any further into the mysterious Mo Xuanyu out of embarrassment. And then Wei Wuxian would be home free.
Not like he has anywhere to go.
Oi, be nice, he's been through a lot.
Unreliable. MXTX's favorite narrator.
Anyways, step 3, profit. Only, surprise, surprise, things don't go according to plan. Lan Wangji seems completely unaffected. He seems entirely too indulgent to this random guy throwing himself at him. Okay, well, Lan Wangji's not really doing anything, he's just standing there. But Wei Wuxian speaks fluent Lan Wangji, and he's acting completely okay with this situation. Damn, you think you know a guy. And then, because there wasn't nearly enough pearl clutching, Jiang Cheng had snapped out of his reverie. Whatever, this might not be Wei Wuxian, but the presence of Wen Ning was definite proof that he had performed demonic cultivation. The Yunman Jiang clan was going to take this suspicious person into custody. He goes to grab him off of Lan Wangji and... I gotta read y'all this little exchange, it's so good. Wei Wuxian continued, "Your kindness is too much, thank you, but you're also overthinking things. Even if I like men, I don't like all men, and I definitely don't just go home with any man who waves at me. I'm not interested in your type." Wei Wuxian was trying to disgust him on purpose. Jiang Cheng hated losing. No matter how nonsensical the competition, if someone were to say he wasn't as good as so-and-so, he'd be so angry that he'd stop eating and drinking until he thought of a way to win against them. Sure enough, Jiang Cheng's face darkened. "Oh, then please enlighten me. What is your type?" "What's my type?" Wei Wuxian replied. I quite like Han Guanjun's type." Lan Wangji, on the other hand, could never tolerate such frivolous and senseless jokes. Once he grew disgusted, he would definitely draw the line and keep his distance on his own. Discussing both of them would be like killing two birds with one stone. Yet, unexpectedly, when Lan Wangji heard him, he turned around. "As you say," he said expressionlessly. Wei Wuxian said. Lan Wangji looked back. Without breaching etiquette, but allowing no room for discussion, he stated, "I am taking this person back to the Lan clan." Wei Wuxian was briefly speechless. Huh? And don't forget, Lan Sijue, Lan Jingyi, and Jinling were just watching that. So, Wei Wuxian travels back to the cloud recesses with the Lan. Not by choice, mind you. Wei Wuxian had been throwing fit after fit, trying to get the Lan clan to abandon him. But the ever-impeccable and patient Lan clan just wouldn't let him go. Wei Wuxian has no desire to go back to the cloud recesses. The time he spent there in his youth had been suffocating, to say the least. Like, seriously, they had to follow over 3,000 rules. When someone, my bets are on Jingyi, tells him that there are over 4,000 rules now, he's even more determined to get away. When they reach the gate, he throws a tantrum, clinging to his donkey,
henceforth known as Little Apple,
screaming and crying on the floor.
Do not make excessive noise.
But Lan Wangji doesn't cave. He simply tells them to, quote, let him cry, drag him in once he's tired, and then walks into the cloud recesses. Wei Wuxian will take it easy on the kids. They do try to console him, the little ducks. Lan Sijue reasons with him. Mo Gongshi, Han Guanjun has brought you here for your own good. Sect leader Jiang wouldn't have stood down unless you came with us. Over the years, countless people have been arrested and taken to the Jiang's Lotus Pier, and none were ever freed. That's right, Lan Jingyi said. You've never seen sect leader Jiang's methods, have you? Super vicious. Jingyi keeps babbling a bit about how scary Jiang Chang is.
Do not speak behind another's back.
But Wei Wuxian is no narc. Just then, Lan Wangji appears back at the gate, with another in tow. Dun-da-da! New character! Introducing the current sect leader of the Gusu Lan sect, the first son of the Lan clan, and Lan Wangji's older brother, Lan Huan. Courtesy name, Lan Zichen. Title, Zewu Jun. I'll call him Zichen. So, Lan Zichen, despite being 9 years older, looks very similar to his younger brother. Even back when Wei Wuxian was here for school, they were called the Twin Jades of Lan. The biggest difference is their demeanor. Where Lan Wangji seems cold and closed, Lan Zichen is warm and open. Lan Zichen is a fantastic diplomat. He's very easy to trust, very righteous, elegant, and sincerely gentle. Honestly, he reminds me of another kind sect leader big brother type. Maybe someone should check on his sword.
Warning. This system knows what host is doing. Please refrain from mentioning other characters from other books.
Ugh, fine, you're so annoying. Look, there's a firmware update. Work on that and leave me alone. Alright, where was I? Oh yeah, Lan Zichen came down to the gate because his little brother came to ask his permission to bring someone into the cloud recesses. That hasn't happened since... Well, I'll put that on the pinboard. For now, all you have to know is that it's pretty much never happened before. He wants to meet the guy. Wei Wuxian starts the theatrics again when he sees them, but Lan Wangji hits him with a silencing spell. What a jerk. They're totally ignoring him. Poor Lan Zichen. Stuff just happens all around him. The two brothers talk for a bit. Lan Zichen is actually heading out soon to visit Jing Guanyao at Cart Tower. The two sect leaders are quite close. But Lan Zichen wants to discuss the arm Lan Wangji captured at Mo Manor. Wei Wuxian is listening now, but they don't say much more. At least, Lan Zichen has the decency to reprimand Lan Wangji a bit for his rough treatment. Lan Wangji tells the juniors to drag him inside. He's to be put in the Tranquility Room and... Hold on, what the fuck? The Tranquility Room, or the Jingshi, is Lan Wangji's private living space. It's definitely not where the town lunatic should be thrown in on a whim, but Wei Wuxian has no choice in the matter. The Tranquility Room has a very simple elegance, very minimalistic, like its owner. It smells of sandalwood, smells like Lan Wangji. Which, side note, okay, this is a total tangent. One of my roomies got really into fragrances, and I go with him to sample stuff all the time. We have adjacent tastes. I like floral, earthy, aromatic scents. He likes those too, but leans way more towards, like, woody scents. In fact, he's got this great sandalwood scent. So, of course, I was like, oh my god, Lan Wangji, wear this one more. Oh, my roommates had to put up with so much. Anyway, back to it. Wei Wuxian is left to his own devices. He wanders around cloud recesses. He wasn't given a jade token, so if he tries to escape over the wall, the barrier will reject him. So that's out. Dejected, he wanders back to the Tranquility Room and decides to snoop around Lan Wangji's stuff. One of the floorboards is a little loose. And color him in shock and awe, Lan Wangji has a secret store of alcohol, Emperor's Smile to be exact. Wei Wuxian would know. This wine is a specialty of the town under cloud recesses, Kaiyi Town. But Wei Wuxian is also familiar with the cloud recesses' very strict policy on liquor. as in it's not allowed at all. Wow, he really underestimated Lan Wangji. Maybe Wei Wuxian influenced him way more than he thought. He can't resist popping a bottle open. This really was very high quality wine, and he hadn't gotten to taste it since he got kicked out of the cloud recesses back then. The drink really did lift his spirits. He's going to track down a jade token and get out of here. There's no sign of one in the tranquility room, so he goes out again. He follows a path he remembers leads to the cold pond. Maybe if he's lucky, someone will have left their token unattended in the bath. There's one set of robes laid out. Wei Wuxian rummages through them but doesn't find anything. And then he catches a glimpse of the poor sucker who waded into the cold. His back is broad and pale and muscular, and absolutely covered in scars from the disciplined whip. Those scars are old, but they'll never fade. It's a shame because his hair is so long and silky, and with his strong build, this guy is super handsome. And then he turns around and, oh fuck. Wei Wuxian really is an idiot. I mean, how did he not recognize the sword with the robes? But as Lan Wangji turns around to face him, there's no way he couldn't recognize him now. Wei Wuxian runs away, but not without catching a glimpse of another scar. No, a brand on Lan Wangji's chest, right over his heart. But that's a mystery for later. He's got to get out of here. He bumps into Lan Jingyi up the path and is like, I definitely wasn't peeking at Hang Wenjun bathing. And Lan Jingyi's like, you cut sleeve, get back here. But Lan Jingyi isn't allowed to shout or run or swear in the cloud recesses. But then, who's coming up the path? A redressed Lan Wangji is here to drag Wei Wuxian back to their rooms. Jingyi is dismissed. So this part is pretty iconic. Lan Wangji drags him by the collar and throws him onto the bed in the tranquility room. The Lans are incredibly disciplined in every aspect of their life. They go to bed at high time,
between 9 and 11 p.m.,
and wake up at Mao time,
between 5 and 7 a.m.
It's time for bed. Wei Wuxian is a total night owl. He's not tired yet, and so makes a fuss again. He crawls on top of Lan Wangji and is like, what? You're the one who invited a cut sleeve into your bed? But Lan Wangji doesn't seem to give a shit and just silences him again. Even goes as far as to immobilize him too. So picture this. Lan Wangji is laying down to sleep and he's dragged Wei Wuxian onto the bed with him, silenced him, cursed him to be immobile until he falls asleep. Great. At least from this angle, he can take a closer look at the brand on Lan Wangji's chest. Now he can see why it looked familiar earlier. This brand, in this spot. Back before the Yiling patriarch rose up, Wei Wuxian had this exact scar in this exact spot. When did this happen? And what is up with Lan Wangji? What's with the alcohol? Does he know that he's really Wei Wuxian? No, there's no way, right? But maybe? And this started with that song he played for Wen Ning. Lan Wangji seemed like he recognized it. Recognized him. There are so many questions, and they all have answers, I promise. But to fully understand, we have to go back to where it all began.
Initiating timeline. Preparations complete.
Let's learn how these two met. Okay, so pretty much everything up to this point has taken place during the real-time arc. But now we're in the flashback. I'm pretty sure this is the earliest point we're going to talk about. When they were 15, Jiang Cheng and Wei Wuxian traveled to the cloud recesses to attend a 3-month guest lecture the Gusulan clan liked to host. Young masters around 15 and 16 from all the major sects were invited to attend. In the Untamed, they let the girlies attend too, so Jiang Yanli goes with them, but not in the novel. Sorry, Queen, we'll check back in later. Even though Wei Wuxian's family name was different, everyone knew that he was part of the Jiang clan. The current sect leader, Jiang Fengmian, took Wei Wuxian in when he was orphaned as a favor to his late parents. He raised him as his own with his 2 children, Jiang Cheng and Jiang Yanli. And Wei Wuxian was an early prodigy. Despite the fact that he hardly took anything seriously and loved messing around, he rose the ranks to the Jiang sect head disciple, even taking over Jiang Cheng. But don't be fooled. The 2 brothers were still very close. Jiang Cheng was the heir to the Jiang clan, and Wei Wuxian pledged to serve as his right-hand man. They were even known as the twin prides of Yunmeng. But that's also not to say they didn't argue all the time. Well, it was less severe than that. They just liked teasing each other. And when they went too far, Jiang Yanli was there to rein them in. This one isn't super important, but Wei Wuxian's birthday is on Halloween, and Jiang Cheng's birthday is on November 5th. So Wei Wuxian is barely older, but that never stopped him from rubbing it in Jiang Cheng's face. So anyways, Wei Wuxian is pretty well known as one of the forerunners in their generation. Going into the lectures, he's pretty excited, but not to learn. He had heard that his mother, Fengxi Shanren, had also attended these lectures back in the day, and she got into so much trouble. At one point, she shaved the teacher's beard. Speaking of the teacher, these lectures were led by Lan Qiren, brother of the sect leader, and uncle to Lan Zichen and Lan Wenji. He's known for being an incredibly strict teacher. Wei Wuxian is going to cause so much trouble. Okay, wait, does that feel too formal? I think I'll use their given names while we're here in the flashback. They're just kids, so I'll call Wei Wuxian Wei Ying, and Lan Wenji can be Lan Zhan. No need to grow up so fast. Trust me. Wei Ying and Jiang Cheng stick together at the cloud recesses. They make friends together, one of which is Nie Huaisang, the younger brother of the Qinghe Nie sect leader. Sorry again about all the characters. They'll all come together, I promise. Nie Huaisang is another troublemaker. The Nie clan is known for their intense saber techniques. Their clan descended from butchers, and it shows. But Nie Huaisang is a bit different. He's weak, and he doesn't like training. He likes to paint and read and keep birds. He carries an elegant fan, and he's failed out of these Gusu lectures 3 times. And if he fails out again, his brother might really kill him. Nie Huaisang is the one to first point Lan Zhan out to Wei Ying. Side note, Nie Huaisang and Wei Ying, and Jiang Cheng too, I'm sure, call each other Sheng, as in Nie Sheng and Wei Sheng. The closest equivalent in English is bro. Nie bro and Wei bro. I think it's cute. Also, it's the same way Airplane Bro and Cucumber Bro call each other. Oh, come on, side tangents don't count.
Perhaps, but this system will decide.
Around this time, Lan Zhan was also known as one of the best in their generation. But he was completely unsociable, never expressing more than silent neutrality. So Nie Sheng points him out, and Wei Ying's like, "Oh, that guy! Yeah, I met him last night." The day they got to the cloud recesses, Wei Ying had snuck out after dark. He wanted to try Kaiyi Town's famous Emperor's Smile. When he was climbing back over the wall, Lan Zhan came to stop him. The cloud recesses has so many rules. Over 3,000, in fact. They prohibit drinking and being out after dark, but Wei Ying doesn't really care. They also prohibit excessive laughter and eating more than 3 bowls of rice. How is he supposed to live like that? But Lan Zhan does care. He catches Wei Ying drinking on the rooftops and demands he stop. Wei Ying doesn't, and they end up fighting.
Personal fighting is prohibited.
Amidst the fighting, Wei Ying manages to finish his jar of wine and hid the others. See? No more wine. Let's stop fighting. And that's how Lan Zhan and Wei Ying first met. Next, I want to talk about an incident that happened during one of Lan Qiren's teaching hours. I'll give you the prompt. So, there is an executioner who executed hundreds while he was alive. His parents and wife are all alive and well. He was murdered in town, his corpse lying in the open air for 7 days, brewing resentment. Now he haunts and perpetuates violence. What should be done? Lan Zhan gives the expected answer. First, deliverance. Second, suppression. Third, obliteration. So you should first see if he has any final wish that you can grant so that he can dissipate peacefully. The living family could help out with that. If that proves futile, then you should suppress the spirit with decision and force. And if his resentment still doesn't disperse, that's when you need to obliterate it completely. So that's the standard practice, and what all young cultivators learn. But Wei Ying has other ideas. He stands to debate with Lan Qiren. Wei Ying pitches a 4th option. The guy killed hundreds as an executioner, right? So why not dig up those bodies, awaken their resentment, fuse their skulls, and have them fight the fierce corpse? This would make use of what is already there. Plus, if the cultivators are already going to be suppressing a number of spirits, why not take control of them instead? Cultivators are only taught to channel spiritual energy. And resentful energy could be toxic to spiritual pathways. But what if someone could develop a cultivation method where it wouldn't be harmful? And it would be more efficient too. A golden core allows cultivators to store and create spiritual energy, but it takes years to develop, and most people never make it that far. And once you have one, you are completely limited by your own ability. Resentful energy is everywhere. It practically creates itself. So even someone with very little spiritual potential could find lots of resentful energy to manipulate. As long as they could, anyway. This is the first time we can see Wei Ying sharing information on his theoretical demonic cultivation, though clearly this isn't the first time he's thought about it. But like I said, it's all theoretical. There's no proof it's even possible. Wei Ying doesn't have any plans to jump off his righteous path. Besides, if he did, who would run Lotus Pier with Jiang Cheng? It was just food for thought. Needless to say, Lan Qiren is incredibly offended that he would even consider it, and kicks Wei Ying out of class for the rest of the day. The school arc is so nice, you know. It's like a fun slice of life. And trust me, you gotta savor this, because when the rest of the book starts happening, it does not stop. Wei Ying gets punished a lot. Mostly it's just him being kicked out of class and being made to copy lines. Nie Huaisong helps him out a bit in exchange for some tutoring. Wei Ying may be getting kicked out every other day, but he really is smart. And Nie Huaisong really can't face his brother if he fails this course again. Lan Zhan seems to really hate him, which Wei Ying doesn't really blame him for. Wei Ying keeps breaking all his precious Lan rules, but Wei Ying is having fun all the same. Wei Ying, Jiang Cheng, and Nie Huaisong start having secret drinking nights in their dorm. One time they got caught, and Jiang Fengmian had to travel all the way to Gusu as part of his punishment. So he gets reprimanded, but honestly, it's not much because Jiang Fengmian has never been harsh towards Wei Ying. I don't want to spoil too much, but the fandom doesn't like Jiang Fengmian that much because of how he so obviously favors Wei Ying over Jiang Cheng and Jiang Yanli. But that will come up more later. The rest of his punishment will be in the library pavilion. He has to copy highest justice and standard etiquette. Standard etiquette is, quote, the most tedious chapter of the 12 Lan Clan precepts, referencing classics, lousy and long and amazingly replete, with uncommon words to boot. One would lose all interest in life after copying it once. Copy it 10 times and you'll ascend on the spot. Normally, Wei Ying would rope as many people to help him copy as he could. So this time, Lan Qiren assigned him a babysitter to watch him in the library. The one he chose would never give in to Wei Ying's manipulations. The perfect guard, Lan Zhan. Okay, so I feel like the library scene is what most people think of when they think of the guest lectures in Cloud Recesses. And honestly, they're not wrong. A verdant mat, a wooden desk, 2 dishes of candles, 2 people. On one end, one sat poised and proper. On the other, Wei Wuxian had copied dozens of pages of standard etiquette, and his head was swimming. Feeling bored, he abandoned the brush for a breath of fresh air and peered to the opposite side. Back in Yunmeng, there had been plenty of girls at the Jiang household, envious that he would attend the same school as Lan Wenji, saying that the Lan clan of Gusu produced beautiful men every generation, and the twin Jades, the 2 Lan brothers, were particularly exceptional. Wei Wuxian hadn't initially had the chance to scrutinize Lan Wenji's full face properly, but now that he had, he let his thoughts fly. He is fairly pretty. His face has nothing to pick on. I just want those girls to come see for themselves that if you constantly wear a profoundly bitter scowl, like you just lost your parents, you can't be saved no matter how pretty you are. Lan Wenji was transcribing anew the ancient books that had been stored in the Lan Library Pavilion for ages, but were too inconvenient to bring out to show outsiders. His brushstrokes were unhurried and deliberate, the writing proportioned and its characters clean. Wei Wuxian blurted praise and spied himself. Beautiful writing, best of the best. Lan Wenji remained unmoved. Wei Wuxian seldom kept his mouth closed for such a long expanse of time. He was going crazy, he thought. This guy is so dull. If I sit here with him for hours a day for an entire month, won't that kill me? Having thought this, he couldn't help but lean forward a bit. Wei Wuxian was very good at finding ways to amuse himself, and he was especially an expert in finding joy amidst suffering. Since there was nothing else to play with, he could only play with Lan Wenji. Wenji Xiong, he said. Lan Wenji steadfastly stood his ground. Wei Wuxian tried again. Wanji. It fell on deaf ears. Wei Wuxian continued. Lan Wanji. Wei Wuxian persisted. Lan Zhan. Lan Wanji finally paused his writing to look up with a cold gaze. Wei Wuxian dodged back, raising his hands in defense. Don't look at me like that. I only called you by your birth name because you won't answer to Wanji. If you're not happy about it, you can call me by my birth name too, he asked sternly. Lan Zhan, I have a question for you. Do you really hate me? Lan Wangji lowered his eyes, his lashes casting light shadows over his jade-like cheeks. Wei Wuxian said promptly, Oh, don't. Ignoring me after a few words. I want to offer you an apology, to say sorry. Look at me. After a pause, he continued. Won't you look at me? Fine, then I'll go ahead. It was my fault that night. I was wrong. I shouldn't have scaled the wall. I shouldn't have drank the booze. I shouldn't have fought you. But I swear I wasn't trying to provoke you on purpose. I really just didn't look at your family rules. The family precepts of the Jiang clan are all passed around by word of mouth. None of it's written down, so I would have never done any of that otherwise. Never would have drunk an entire jug of Emperor's Smile in front of you. I'd have tucked it in my robes and snuck it back to my room to enjoy. I'd drink it every day. I'd share it with everyone, and we'd all have our fill. Wei Wuxian continued. Besides, let's be reasonable here. Who was the one to start the fight? You. If you hadn't made the first move, we could have talked properly and cleared up that little misunderstanding. But if someone attacks me, I have to fight back. You can't blame me for that. Lan Zhan, are you listening? Look at me. Lan Gongshi. He snapped his fingers. Lan Ge, come on, grant me some face. Look at me. Without lifting his eyes at all, Lan Wangji said, Transcribe it all an additional time. Wei Wuxian instantly slumped to the ground. Don't be like that. I said I was sorry. Lan Wangji exposed him heartlessly. You are not remorseful in the least. And then he uses the silencing spell again. Lan Zhan ignores Wei Ying's pleading eyes. He ignores his scribbled notes and doodles. All of them crumpled and tossed to the ground, so Wei Ying can only finish his lines for the day in silence. 3 days go by in a similar fashion. Wei Ying arrives at the library, makes it a few hours before getting bored, starts to annoy Lan Zhan, gets silenced, wash, rinse, repeat. On the last day, Wei Ying brings his sword to the library pavilion. He just lays it next to himself. He also presents Lan Zhan with another drawing. Not just a doodle like the others, it's a portrait. The subject is sitting prim and proper, reading silently by the window, the expression and demeanor remarkably realistic. It's Lan Zhan. Lan Zhan doesn't crumple this one. He only lightly scolds him for not focusing on work. It's almost like Lan Zhan likes it. And then Wei Ying snarks a little and Lan Zhan doesn't silence him. Great! Wei Ying announces that there's one thing missing, and in a few strokes, adds a flower to Lan Zhan's hair. There, now the portrait's done. Frivolous, right? I know you were gonna say frivolous. Can't you switch it up? Maybe add a word or two? Lan Wangji said coldly. Exceedingly frivolous. Very cute. But all of this was just a distraction. Lan Zhan had been reading a Buddhist sutra, but when he goes to pick it back up, it's been replaced by a fully illustrated erotica. Lan Zhan shouts and summons Bichen, but Wei Ying, even rolling on the floor with laughter, planned for this. He brought his sword too. A fight in here would be really dangerous for the books. Lan Zhan wants to drag him outside to fight, but private fights are prohibited in the cloud recesses. Wei Ying reaches to take the book back, but Lan Zhan snatches it first. Wei Ying barely sasses about having more if Lan Zhan is interested, before the book is shredded and left to flutter to the ground in scraps. What a waste! He plucked a piece of the shredded paper from his hair and held it up to show Lan Zhan, who had gone pale with anger. Lan Zhan, you're good at everything, but that habit of yours of throwing things around is awful. Look at yourself. How many paper balls have you tossed on the floor in the past few days? And now you're bored with paper balls, so you're ripping up paper for fun? Clean up after yourself, yeah? I'm not gonna help you. Of course, he had never helped to begin with. Lan Zhan tried to endure it, but in the end he could not. He shouted angrily, Get lost. Wei Ying escapes out the window and finds his partner in crime, Nia Huaisong. That was Huaisong's erotica. He had been spying on the whole prank. Zhang Cheng is there too, but he will deny having anything to do with this stupid stunt. He reminds the other two that they are damn lucky Lan Qiren canceled classes for a few days to attend a symposium in Qinghe. Don't get me wrong, Wei Ying is definitely gonna get punishment for this. He knows, but he still gets a little break. Probably. The next day, Wei Ying wants to try his hand at catching pheasants in the woods. But our little misfit trio runs into Lan Zhan walking with his brother Lan Zichen. Wei Ying and Jiang Cheng introduce themselves to the heir of the Gusu Lan sect. Nie Huaisong doesn't have to. Lan Zichen had a very close relationship to Nie Mingjue. Reminder, Nie Mingjue, title Qi Fengzun, the current leader of Qinghe Nie sect and Nie Huaisong's older half-brother. Nie Huaisong sheepishly endures as his Zichenge teases him about his studies. Your older brother was asking about your studies. Will you be able to pass this year? Lan Zhan huffs at Wei Ying trying to get his attention and tries to urge Lan Zichen along. They have a mission. Lan Zichen takes a look at his little brother, actually talk to someone other than him, someone Lan Zhan's own age even, and decides it would be a good opportunity to invite them along. And honestly, it's not a bad idea. Kaiyi Town is a port city, and they had waterways all throughout. Lately, they had been having a problem with water ghouls. Yunmeng was covered in lakes and rivers. Everyone rode boats at Lotus Pier. Wei Ying and Jiang Cheng were the top 2 disciples of Yunmeng Jiang. They had experience with water ghouls and the like. Plus, Lan Wenji could really use some friends. So, the twin prides of Yunmeng change plans and head to Kaiyi Town with the twin jades of Lan. Nie Huaisong, for his part, is perfectly content staying behind. In Kaiyi Town, Jiang Cheng and Wei Ying fall into a familiar routine of being generally competitive and racing the boats. They get a frivolous from Lan Zhan. Lan Zichen goes over the strategy for hunting water ghouls. They tend to hide until they can attack, so the 4 of them, as well as a handful of other Lan disciples, will be utilizing nets. The methods are pretty much the same to the ones they use in Yunmeng, the only exception being Wei Ying's preference to dive in and drag the ghouls to shore himself. He's a very good swimmer, after all, but he'll refrain for now. The strange thing is that water ghouls are very territorial. They tend to stay where they died, but there have been no reported drownings in Kaiyi Town except for the ones caused by the water ghouls. It's odd for them to have come from upstream. It suggests a third party drove them away instead of dealing with them. But I guess that's why Lan Zichen and Lan Wenji were personally called to deal with it. Wei Ying barely sees it, but he reacts immediately. He shouts at Lan Zhan, Lan Zhan, look at me! And then uses his oar to splash. Lan Zhan jumps onto Lan Zichen's boat with another frivolous to avoid the water getting out of Wei Ying's way. He continues splashing and uses the oar to flip the now empty boat over, exposing water ghouls clinging to the bottom. Wei Ying had noticed that, even though Lan Zhan was alone, his boat sank further, like it was carrying the weight of 2 people. It's time to start the battle, but first, we have to learn about Wei Ying's sword. Lan Zhan asks what he calls the sword, and Wei Ying responds, you can call it whatever. Lan Zhan is offended at the apparent lack of respect for a spiritual weapon, but this is one of Wei Ying's favorite jokes. It's not disrespectful. The sword's name is Suibian, meaning whatever. When the sword was forged, Jiang Fengmian asked what he would like to name it. At the time, Wei Ying really was being flippant when he said, just name it whatever. But when it came back engraved with Suibian, he decided that it was a perfect name for the sword. Oh, I should also mention Jiang Cheng's sword, Sandu. Currently, Sandu is his only spiritual weapon. Okay, now let's do the battle. The water ghouls start appearing more and more. The cultivators strike them down. Some are being caught in the nets, too. They're pretty easy to deal with as long as you don't get overwhelmed. Then, a large shadow appears below them in the lake. It turns out this wasn't just a handful of water ghouls, but an entire waterborne abyss. If the water ghouls are Magikarp, then the waterborne abyss is a Gyarados. That is to say, it's a way bigger threat. Think of it like the water itself being fueled by resentful energy. A third party shoving water ghouls to the next town downstream was a dick move for sure, but sending a waterborne abyss was practically a declaration of war. The ghouls had lured their boats into the middle of the lake. Normally, this would make fighting a little easier with an open space, but now they're right on top of the abyss. It opens, creating a giant whirlpool. Among the party, there's this one guy called Sushir. I think that's how it's pronounced, but it's spelled like sushi. He's an outer disciple for the Gusulan sect. Sushir is not very skilled and very jealous of Lanjan because they're the same age. But Lanjan is far more accomplished. And he makes this his entire personality. When they were just dealing with the ghouls, Sushir saw Lanjan control Bichen to dive into the water, kill multiple ghouls, and fly back into his hand. Sushir tried to copy him, but all his sword did was sink to the bottom of the lake. And he doesn't have enough spiritual energy to recall it, so now the idiot doesn't have a sword. This is relevant because once the abyss opened, boats started being pulled under. Lan Xichen saw this and gave the command to abandon the boats. They would continue fighting from their swords. Everyone jumped on their swords except the idiot who sank his weapon. Wei Ying spots him and turns back to get him. He grabs Sushir before he's fully underwater, but the water ghouls have him too. At this rate, Wei Ying is going to be dragged in. He calls for assistance. Wei Ying looks for Jiang Cheng, but he's pretty high up and might not make it in time. Just then, Wei Ying feels a tug on the back of his collar. It's Lan Zhan. Lan Zhan very effortlessly drags both of them away from the water like monkeys in a barrel. Once away from danger, Wei Ying thanks him, but asks if he could change his grip, at least. It's quite uncomfortable being held by the back collar. He's like, "Here, Lan Zhan, you can hold my hand instead." But Lan Zhan is so cold, like, "I do not touch others." Hilarious. They all fly back to shore to regroup. The waterborne abyss is no small matter. There's no way it could have been formed naturally in Kai Town. The people there are too good of swimmers for this big of a tragedy. Lan Wenji asks if there had been any recent event involving a waterborne abyss. Lan Xichen responds by pointing at the sun. So, at the very start of this episode, I went over the 4 major sects: Gusu Lan, Yu Mengjiang, Lan Lingjin, and Qinghe Nie. But that was for the real-time arc. Here on the flashback, there's a 5th major sect, Qishan Wen. The Wen clan had been steadily expanding their territories for years now, making them the largest sect in terms of land. That seemed to be really going to their heads, and tensions were rising between them and the other major sects. Basically, these guys are the Fire Nation, and that's just gonna keep happening. They wear red and the symbol of the sun. Lan Xichen was careful about the rumors of Wen spies in Lan sect territory, but his gesture was unmistakable. The Wen sect had sent the abyss. Lan Xichen decided that this was not a job for junior disciples. He would return with the Lan elders and sends the kids back to town. There's a fluffy little scene here to make up for all the political unrest. The ladies in Kai Town make a point of giving out fruit to handsome young men. "You're so handsome! Have a loquat!" Wei Ying is pretty proud of himself for getting free fruit. He points at Lan Zhan. "What about him? Is he handsome?" And the ladies go, "Oh yes, very handsome. Here, we'll give you 2 more loquats." Wei Ying offers them to Lan Zhan, who rejects it outright. Wei Ying totally saw that one coming, and trick shots the loquat to Jiang Cheng instead. That night, Wei Ying snuck out for liquor again. And Lan Zhan caught him on his patrol again. The two fought again, but this time, in the tussle, they both fell over the wall.
Do not enter or exit over the wall in cloud recesses.
Well, that hurt, but Wei Ying saw a golden opportunity and wrapped himself around Lan Zhan. "Oh, look at that, Lan Zhan. Both of us went over the wall, so that means both of us broke the rules. Don't worry, I won't tell if you won't, so let's just forget about this. What do you say?" Lan Zhan didn't say anything, really, so Wei Ying thought he got away with it. So he just continued his night, which included getting really drunk with Jiang Cheng and Nie Huaisang. The next morning, they're all hungover and definitely not expecting Lan Zhan at their doorstep first thing. He's here to collect Wei Ying for punishment. He is to receive a beating with the discipline paddle for his transgressions. And Wei Ying is fighting the whole time. This is so unfair. Lan Zhan should vouch for him, not turn him in. They're equally as guilty. But then Lan Zhan kneels right next to him. Lan Zhan had requested punishment for them both. And Wei Ying's tone changes immediately. He begs for forgiveness so that they don't have to take the beating. Lan Zhan really didn't do anything wrong. It was Wei Ying's fault. But Lan Zhan calls for the beating to start. After it's over, Jiang Cheng and Nie Huaisang are permitted to drag Wei Ying away. Lan Zhan manages all on his own, even though his own back is no less bruised. Wei Ying is loudly moaning and complaining from Jiang Cheng's back when they run into Lan Xichen. Wei Ying doesn't waste a single moment before complaining about his harsh treatment from Lan Zhan. Nie Huaisang asks him for any medicine they can give Wei Ying, and Lan Xichen suggests something that would work better than medicine.
Nighttime, the cloud recesses, cold pond.
Lan Wangji is soaking in the icy spring waters with his eyes closed, refreshing his spirit when a voice suddenly whispers into his ear. Lanjan. Lan Wangji's eyes snapped open. Sure enough, Wei Wuxian was lounging upon the moss-green rock by the end of the cold spring, grinning at him with his head tilted. Lan Wangji blurted out, "How did you get in?" Wei Wuxian languidly crawled to his feet and replied as he untied his sash, "Zhe Jun let me in." "What are you doing?" Lan Wangji demanded. Wei Wuxian kicked off his boots and spoke while undressing, littering the ground with clothes. "I'm already stripping, and you're asking what I'm doing? They say your clan's cold spring, besides calming the spirit for cultivation purposes, has the ability to heal external injuries. So your Gaga told me to come and soak with you. But it's so sneaky of you to come and recuperate alone. Ugh, it's really cold." He entered the spring, and the bone-bitingly freezing spring water had him flailing about. Lan Wangji speedily pulled away. "I have come for cultivation, not for recuperation. Stop thrashing." "But it's so cold, so cold," Wei Wuxian complained. After getting used to the chill, Wei Wuxian started swimming around in the cold spring. After swimming for a while, he couldn't resist wading over to Lan Wangji. "Lanjan, can't you tell what I meant by all the chatter?" "No," Lan Wangji replied. "You can't," Wei Wuxian said. "I was complimenting you, trying to get chummy." Lan Wangji gave him a look. "What do you want?" "Lanjan, let's be friends, yeah? We're so well acquainted now." "We are not." Wei Wuxian slapped the water. "It's no fun if you're like this. Really, there's lots of benefits to being my friend." "For example?" Wei Wuxian swam to the other side of the pond and leaned back on the moss-green rock, laying his arm over it. "I'm always very loyal to my friends, for example. Any newly obtained erotica, I will definitely show you first." "Hey, come back. It's nothing if you don't want to look. Have you been to Yunmeng? Yunmeng has lots of fun. And Yunmeng's food is good too. I don't know if this is a Gusu problem or a Cloud Recesses problem, but your food is awful. If you come hang out at Lotus Pier, you can eat lots of good food. I'll take you to pick lotus seed pods and water chestnuts. Lanjan, will you come?" "No," Lan Wangji said. "Come on, don't keep issuing rejections with negative words. It sounds so cold," Wei Wuxian said. "Girls won't like hearing it. The girls in Yunmeng are particularly pretty, a different kind of beautiful from Gusu girls." He winked at Lan Wangji with his left eye and asked again, pleased, "You really won't come?" Lan Wangji paused for a moment, but still started to say, "No." Wei Wuxian said, "Rejecting me like this without giving me a single bit of face. Aren't you worried that when I leave, I'll take your clothes away too?" Get lost. All the Lan elders are working together to deal with the waterborne abyss, including Lan Qiren, so the lectures get shorter and shorter, giving all the kids more time to mess around. One day, Wei Ying decides to bring Lanjan a peace offering from the back mountain. 2 bunny rabbits. They are so adorable and fluffy. Snow-white fur. Notably, they're both male, and they do like, quote, playing on top of each other. There's actually an ancient Chinese deity named Tu'er Shen, god of rabbits and patron of homosexual love. Just a fun fact. Lanjan rejects them outright. One of the rabbits is hopping on his inkstone and making a mess.
Pets are prohibited in the cloud recesses.
So Wei Ying's like, "Ugh, I knew you'd say that. Fine. I'll give them to someone else. Who do you think is best at cooking rabbits?"
Killing is prohibited in the cloud recesses.
Lanjan gets annoyed at him and tells him the rules. So Wei Ying's like, "Then I'll go down the mountain and have someone cook them in town." And then Lanjan has to admit defeat and just takes them. Hooray! Mission give Lanjan bunnies a success. The next day, Lanjan stops coming to class. Lan Qiren had strategically assigned Wei Ying to sit next to Lanjan, because if Wei Ying sat next to anyone else, he convinced them to mess around with him. His nephew seemed to be the only one immune to the hurricane that was Wei Ying. But after the library incident and the bunny incident and the stuff that led Lanjan to the discipline paddle, Lan Qiren was beginning to fear that Lanjan would be corrupted too. So he told him to study on his own instead of attending class. Without Lanjan around, Wei Ying paid more attention to the other students. Let's talk about Jin Zixuan. Jin Zixuan is the young master of the Jin clan in Lanling. As the only official son of the current sect leader, Jin Guangshan, man-whore extraordinaire, he was set to inherit the sect. and to create stronger ties to another of the major sects, he was engaged to be married. Okay, I say for political reasons, but that's just kind of on the surface. Really, the mothers of both bride and groom are very good friends and want to set their kids up and become in-laws. Who's the lucky lady, you might ask? Well, it's Jiang Yanli, the eldest daughter of the Jiang clan, and Wei Ying and Jiang Cheng's older sister. And both brothers do not like Jin Zixuan. The Jin sect is the richest of the great sects. They love opulence and gold and being full of themselves. Jiang Cheng and Wei Ying often compare Jin Zixuan to a peacock, the way he struts around showing off. On this particular day, Wei Ying overhears a conversation he's having. Jin Zixuan, who do you think is the best girl? Someone else answered, don't bother asking Zixuan Sheng that. He already has a fiancé, so the answer is surely his fiancé. Having heard the word fiancé, Jin Zixuan seemed to purse his lips, looking a little unhappy. The disciple who first asked the question wasn't one to take hints, and was still buoyantly curious. For real? Which family is she from? She must be shockingly smart and beautiful, right? Jin Zixuan arched his brows. No need to bring this up again. And oh hell no. No one insults Jiang Yanli, especially not in front of her brothers. These siblings are all ride or die. Wei Ying and Jiang Cheng had been playing nice for the most part, because they love their sister, and they knew she was looking forward to getting married. But Jin Zixuan can't seem to keep his mouth shut. If she's disappointed, tell her to cancel this engagement. Either way, I don't care for your precious Shijie. Then, to Wei Ying. Why don't you go ask her father for her hand? Doesn't he treat you more dearly than his own son? That last comment made Jiang Cheng's gaze freeze. Wei Ying is punching Jin Zixuan's nose before he can even think about it. Jiang Fengmian is called back to the cloud recesses, this time to pick up Wei Ying. He is prohibited from finishing the lectures and will be returning to Lotus Pier. Jiang Cheng is there to send him off. Lan Zhan also got to see him before he left, while Wei Ying was kneeling in the punishment courtyard. Wei Ying was hunched over as he knelt, and upon closer look, his shoulders were shaking. Lan Zhan thought he might be crying and approached him. But it turns out Wei Ying was just poking an anthill with a stick. Yeah, Lan Zhan left pretty quickly after that. And that marks the end of the Cloud Recesses lecture saga. What did y'all think? Lots of stuff was set up character-wise. Do you feel like you understand our leads a little more, or do you just have more questions? I suspect both. That's just how Modao goes. Just keep all your questions in mind, and let's pop back into the real-time arc with Chapter 5. Okay, quick recap. I'll switch back to courtesy names. Wei Wuxian in Mo Xianyu's body was taken back to the cloud recesses. Lan Wangji set him up in his own personal rooms and made him go to bed early. Wei Wuxian wakes up in the tranquility room alone, and his back hurts from being paralyzed on his stomach. He's alone because the Lans wake up very early. Wei Wuxian likes to sleep in. Lan Sijue and Lan Jingyi come to wake him. I can't get up, Wei Wuxian said. What's wrong with you now? Lan Sijue asked. What's wrong with me? Your sex, Hang Wenjun, made me sleep with him, that's what, Wei Wuxian exclaimed. Lan Jingyi's truculent voice sounded out. If you won't stop that nonsense of yours, I won't forgive you. Come out. Wei Wuxian cried out, aggrieved. It's true. He forced me to sleep with him all night long. I'm not coming out. I'm too ashamed. Lan Jingyi yelled angrily. How shameless! Hang Guanjun is in a cut sleeve. Get up, take that donkey of yours away and control it a little. It's so noisy. So Wei Wuxian gets up to feed Little Apple. He notices a lot of rabbits running around and jokes about roasting some for lunch. Lan Jingyi yells at him again. Those are Hang Guanjun's rabbits. He raised them himself, so you definitely can't eat them. Wei Wuxian's like, damn, but he rejected the rabbits back then. So Lan Wangji has even changed his opinion on rabbits. Very, very strange. They are interrupted by a loud bell. There's a watchtower known as the Nether Room. It's the building the Lans use for summoning souls. When the bell starts tolling wildly, it meant only one thing. Whoever was conducting a soul summoning ritual inside had met with an accident. They make their way to the tower where a crowd is forming. Wei Wuxian doesn't see Lan Wangji anywhere, meaning he's probably still inside. A disciple stumbles out of the room, bleeding and breathing ragged, and confirms as much. Wei Wuxian forces his way inside. The pressure is intense. He feels a familiar ache in his chest as he moves through the dense, resentful energy. There are more injured and unconscious Lan cultivators scattered around the room, including Lan Qiren. In the center, in the soul summoning circle, is the arm from Mo Manor. It was standing upright, with its index finger pointed at the sky. The only person in the room not out of commission is Lan Wangji, who is playing his Guqian. His posture is as unperturbed and upright as always, but this is clearly a very heavy task. Wei Wuxian takes out his makeshift flute and begins to play with him. They are playing a song called Evocation, using a corpse, a part of a corpse, or a beloved item from the deceased as a medium. The soul of the dead could come forth at the sound of the music. Usually, only a segment was needed before the soul would appear within the array. But they had played through most of the song and still nothing appeared. Instead, the pressure kept building and building. If it was anyone else, they probably would have collapsed like the others by now. Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji both come to the same conclusion. The soul of the deceased had been cut up like the rest of the body. Which, that sucks, really. Wei Wuxian experienced being ripped apart. Truly a very unpleasant experience. But even his soul was still left intact. Lan Wangji changes strategies and starts playing Rest instead. Wei Wuxian follows suit. If one was familiar with musical cultivation, knowing the notes for songs like Evocation or Rest wasn't uncommon, but Wei Wuxian had to keep in mind that the Yiling patriarch was known for playing the flute. Even though his free-handed bamboo one couldn't possibly compare to Chengqing, that was his flute's name, he still wants to play it safe. Make sure no one can make that connection. So Wei Wuxian has been playing purposefully bad. He misses notes and plays out of tune. Lan Wangji has probably never played a worse duet. If you're wondering, Lan Wangji's Guqian also has a name. I haven't mentioned it because its name is also Wangji. Wangji playing Wangji. Yeah, I'll just keep calling it Lan Wangji's Guqian. Lan Wangji is giving him a side-eye but doesn't say anything, just keeps playing. Wei Wuxian takes it as a challenge and starts playing even worse, so much so that Lan Qiren recovers enough to point and yell at him to stop playing and get out. He was ruining his nephew's music playing like that. But whatever, it might sound bad, but the song still worked. The arm slowly drooped as they suppressed it. When the song ended, the doors burst open and the crowd outside rushes in. Those who had collapsed were given medical attention, although it doesn't take long to see that they had all been hit with an unprecedented amount of backlash. Even Lan Qiren, who had performed numerous soul-summoning rituals and had never had a reaction like this. Just how powerful was this arm? Wei Wuxian spots Lan Sidue looking pensive. The poor kid feels guilty for putting up the spirit flags that drew the arm to Mo Manor in the first place. Maybe if it hadn't slaughtered the Mo clan, it wouldn't be as powerful now. Wei Wuxian pats his shoulder and tries to comfort him. It's not his fault at all. If anyone is to blame, then it would be the one who released the arm to begin with. Lan Wangji, for his part, is focused on what to do next. They need to track the arm's origins. During the ritual, the arm began to point towards the northwest, so that's their lead. Like draws to like. It was likely pointing at either more of its own body parts or the person who cut it up. Since Lan Wangji and this mysterious Mo Zhuanyu were able to suppress it, they will be the ones to go. Wei Wuxian makes a joke about eloping, and Lan Qiren twitches. Lan Wangji had gained a reputation for being a highly competent cultivator. He traveled around, hunting any evil spirits he came across. He became known for always going where the chaos is, but he worked alone. Occasionally, he would supervise junior disciples on their night hunts, like at Mo Manor. But for the most part, he was a loner. Wei Wuxian initially agreed to go with him so that he could sneak away once they left Gusulan territory, but Lan Wangji kept catching him. So he changed tactics and acted clingy, but Lan Wangji never shoved him away like he expected him to. In fact, he just sort of let Wei Wuxian climb all over him. So they continued to travel together. They would follow the direction the arm indicated, and every night they would play Rest to keep it suppressed. It leads them to a small town in Qinghe. Wei Wuxian whines about wanting to buy stuff at the market. Lan Wangji points out that he doesn't have any money. So Wei Wuxian demands that Lan Wangji give him some, and he just does? Just pulls out his wallet and lets Wei Wuxian take the whole thing. Like, damn. Wei Wuxian has been acting insufferable, even by his own standards. What is up with Lan Wangji? Has he met Mo Zhuanyu before? Were they having some secret fling or something? Surely he would have said something by now, right? Baby steps weighing. Baby steps. They wander around the market some more and run into a quack. He's selling talismans of the Yiling Patriarch, vanquisher of evil. That almost sounds complimentary, except the portrait on these talismans were completely heinous. Wei Wuxian is about to go off about how the Yiling Patriarch was actually a misunderstood beauty when the quack gets kicked from behind. It's Jinling. He's his uncle's nephew, and he'll kick anyone trying to sell this demonic cultivation garbage. But it's not just Jinling. The Yiling Patriarch has a weakness. Before Wei Wuxian was adopted by the Jiangs, he spent some time living on the streets. During that time, his greatest enemy and tormentors were the feral dogs that competed with him for edible trash. He's been afraid of dogs ever since. Jiang Cheng always made fun of him. He loved dogs. He actually had a few dogs as a kid, but when Wei Wuxian moved in, Jiang Fengmian made him give them up to help Wei Ying settle in. And sure, that sucked. But the siblings grew to be so close back then. Jiang Cheng was there to drive the dogs away from Wei Wuxian, but yeah, things have changed. Wei Wuxian died, and he and Jiang Cheng were not on good terms. Jiang Cheng still loved dogs. He didn't own any of his own, but then Jin Guangyao gifted Jinling a spirit dog to grow up with. Everyone meet Fairy, a very good dog. Wei Wuxian turned tail and ran as fast as he could, screaming, and Jinling is a little brat. He whistles and Fairy chases after him. Wei Wuxian runs until he spots Lan Wenzhi. Lanjan, save me! Wei Wuxian dives behind his legs. Even Fairy isn't immune to the cold stare Lan Wenzhi hits him with. The dog slinks back to its owner with its tail between his legs. The quack is also still there and grateful that the kid who kicked him is gone. As thanks, he tells them about strange occurrences. A few kilometers from town, there's a mountain ridge called Xinglu Ridge, also known as the Man-Eating Ridge. There are tons of rumors about that place. It's said it's infested with man-eating monsters, that everyone who ventures there will be devoured without exception, and that no one has made it out alive. They ask if he can tell them about the victims, and he says he doesn't know of any specific victims. They ask how he knows people are being eaten if no one has ever made it out, and he doesn't know that either. Great. These might just be rumors, but they don't have any other leads, and the arm did lead them here, so they might as well investigate. The only other information the quack gives them is about the current sect leader of Qinghe Nie, widely known as the Head Shaker. Whenever he is asked about anything, all he does is shake his head and cry, I don't know, I really don't know. And we've actually already met the Head Shaker. It's Nie Huaisang. You know, Wei Wuxian and Jiang Cheng's friend from school who drank in their room with them and lent Wei Wuxian erotic literature to use in pranks and who failed the Gusu Lan lectures 3 years in a row. His brother, Nie Mingjue, died, forcing him to take over as sect leader. But yeah, he's not the best at his job, it would seem. And that's honestly not surprising. Wei Wuxian remembers how Nie Huaisang was before, always way more interested in painting fans and catching birds than his studies. He was the heir to the sect, but his golden core formed 8 or 9 years after his peers. Nie Mingjue left it to his 2 sworn brothers, Jin Guangyao and Lan Xichen, to help guide his little brother after he was gone. But not even they could prevent Qinghe Nie clan's steady decline under Huaisang's leadership. Anyways, off to Xinglu Ridge they go. They had very few expectations of actually finding anything based on what the quack told them. Those rumors were probably just rumors, but what's there to lose walking through and taking a look? And they do actually find something. 7 or 8 very weak corpses stumbling down the road. At this level, these guys were, quote, only good for being bullied by their own kind. If they ran into living humans possessing even the slightest bit of strength, a single kick would topple an entire row of them. And sure enough, as soon as the corpses come close enough to sense them, they turn around and wobble away. Wei Wuxian sighs, and is about to write all of this off as a waste of time when they hear a dog bark. Wei Wuxian immediately freezes. It's coming from some distance away. The barking continues but doesn't get any closer or further away, and it sounds exactly like Jinling's dog Fairy. Even frightened and shaking, Wei Wuxian agrees that they can't ignore it, and they go to investigate. They walk for a while. There seems to be a maze array. Sometimes it sounds like they're very close to the dog, but then the barks sound distant again. They wander for long enough that Wei Wuxian stops flinching at every bark. And finally, they find a collection of stone bunkers with domed roofs. They found the rumored man-eating fortress. Fairy is running laps around a cluster of stone bunkers. Each bunker is stone all the way around. None of them have an entrance that they can see. Fairy runs up to them and bites onto Wei Wuxian's robes. He starts screaming, but Fairy ignores him and starts tugging him towards one of the bunkers. Fairy grabs Wei Wuxian, and Wei Wuxian grabs Lan Wangji, and they all go to the bunker. The dog leads them around to the side, and they see that this bunker has a hole blasted in it. It looked as if someone had kicked it down with spiritual energy. They call for Jinling, but hear nothing. Lan Wangji draws Bichen and they venture inside. They use the blade as a light. Something seems to be stopping Fairy from entering, and Wei Wuxian is perfectly happy with that. They wander down a stone hall. There are empty stone chambers. They walk until they find one with a coffin in the center of it. For Lan Wangji, the place is eerily silent, but for Wei Wuxian, whose soul is attuned to resentful energy, it's so loud it's dizzying. He has to rub his temple and the farming headache. There are so many voices from every direction. He pulls out a compass of ill winds, and all it does is spin. They call for Jinling again. Still nothing. They decide to investigate the coffin. It has a very intricate design. A very nice coffin. The moment the coffin lid was opened, the clamoring noise around them suddenly increased exponentially, drowning Wei Wuxian's hearing like an incoming tide. Before this, it had already felt as though they were being spied on by countless eyes, the owners of those eyes secretly monitoring them, discussing their every word and action. And in seeing them move to open the coffin, their agitation flared. Wei Wuxian thought of a dozen possibilities. He was already prepared to deal with the rancid smells assaulting his nose, demonic claws suddenly lunging forth, venomous water spraying, poisonous gas diffusing, assault by resentful spirits, and so on. However, nothing happened. Absolutely nothing. Within the coffin, there lay a long saber. The two closed the coffin lid and continued their travels deeper inside. There were several more stone chambers where they discovered the same kind of coffin. They reached the very last room, and there was still no sign of Jinling. Wei Wuxian closed the last coffin lid, feeling slightly uneasy. Lan Wangji observed his frown and his silence. After a moment of deliberation, he placed his guqian on top of the coffin, raised his hands, and a string of notes flowed from his fingers. He only played a short segment before he withdrew his right hand from the guqian, and then stared intently at the strings that were still vibrating. Inquiry was a famous song composed by the forebears of the Lan clan of Gusu. One who wished to pose an inquiry made it known through the guqian's melody, with the inquiry serving as the conduit. The answer of the deceased would be transformed into notes and plucked upon the strings. Han Guanjun, ask them for me. What is this place? What is it for? Who built it? Lan Wangji was proficient in Guqian language, and without needing to think, he strummed a few clear notes. A moment later, the strings played their own a few times more. Wei Wuxian asked quickly, "What did it say?" "Do not know," Lan Wangji replied. "Huh?" Lan Wangji explained unhurriedly. "It said, 'Do not know.'" I don't know. I really don't know. I guess a visit to an old friend is in order, but first, they have to find Jinling. Lan Wangji asks if there's a boy here. The spirit says, right here. That's odd. He asks how old the spirit is and where it's from. It says, 15 from Lanling. It's Jinling. They have to find him. Lan Wangji asks for directions to his exact location and relays it to Wei Wuxian, who follows them. It stops him at one of the walls. All the rocks are laid seamlessly together, but this has to be it. They break through. It turns out the walls here are double-layered. Between the layers, we're packed with dirt. Wei Wuxian reaches into the dirt and pulls Jinling out. As soon as his face hit open air, he began gasping vigorously. They got here just in time. Inquiry wouldn't have picked him up if his soul wasn't on the brink of leaving. Curious, Wei Wuxian reaches around in the dirt and finds skeletal human remains. Just what is this place? Jinling is still unconscious, but keeps trying to climb back into the wall. They hear Fairy barking again. Something is happening outside. Wei Wuxian drapes Jinling over his back and they head back outside. Fairy is barking at someone who just ran away. Once he spots his owner, he comes trotting over with a torn piece of robe, presumably from whoever he just chased off. They're both pretty sure they know who it is. The problem is that if they don't catch up to him now, he might be really hard to track down later. Lan Wangji volunteers to give chase. Wei Wuxian will take Jinling back to town to recover. And Fairy has to go with Lan Wangji. Otherwise, Wei Wuxian might just have a heart attack and die. Everyone got it? Cool. Break. Wei Wuxian must look like quite the sight, walking through town with an unconscious kid on his back, both of them completely covered in dirt. He goes back to the market street and books a room at the first inn he sees. Good thing he still has Lan Wangji's money pouch. He gets Jinling out of his ruined outer robes and checks him for injuries. He finds a deep, bruise-like curse mark running up his calf. This kind of mark appears when one encounters an exceedingly wicked spirit. One that would definitely hunt you down if you bear their mark. It seemed to be spreading, too. Quickly, he loosens Jinling's inner robes to inspect the damage. It's spreading up his thigh, but hasn't reached his stomach yet. Just then, Jinling wakes up, yells some stuff, and reaches for his sword to defend his honor against the lunatic undressing him. Wei Wuxian, for his part, is just laughing about the ridiculousness of it all. Eventually, he pulls it together enough to explain that he was the one to pull him out of the wall and was only cleaning him up. Jinling doesn't remember his soul almost leaving his body or speaking through inquiry, but he does vaguely recall that Mo Zhuanyu guy pulling him out of a wall. But he's still very flustered and not happy with this situation at all. He tucks his clothes back on, sees how late it's gotten, and rushes outside. Kids are so full of energy. Look at him. He almost died today and he's still running around. And then he remembers Wei Wuxian still hasn't dealt with the curse mark and chases after him. He loses track of the kid among the narrow streets, but he hears a very familiar, very angry voice. Of course, Jinling didn't come alone. Just like on Dafa Mountain, he had Jiang Cheng here to supervise him. Jiang Cheng asks Jinling why he looks like such a mess and why Fairy isn't with him, and oop, that's Wei Wuxian's cue to leave. But then, guess Fairy isn't with Lan Wangji anymore. Fairy is a very good dog, and comes to greet Jinling, who really worried the poor puppy today, and as a consequence, totally scares Wei Wuxian out of his hiding spot.
Uh-oh.
Wei Wuxian makes eye contact with Jiang Cheng for a full second before turning to run away, but he barely makes it 2 steps before Zhidian is wrapped around his leg and yanking him back. A paralyzing pain zapping through his body. Before he knows it, Jiang Cheng has grabbed him by the back of his robes, kicked a door to another local inn, and stuck him in a room. This is a tough situation for Wei Wuxian. He doesn't really want to do this with Jiang Cheng right now. It's been a long day, but it's not like he can leave. Fairy is guarding the door. I guess we're doing this. You don't have anything to say to me? Jiang Cheng had to deal with Wei Wuxian and his fear of dogs their entire childhood. That reaction was unmistakable. Wei Wuxian doesn't really know how to say anything to Jiang Cheng anymore. Well, Jiang Cheng has plenty. He's throwing out a bunch of stuff to get Wei Wuxian to admit who he is. And then he brings up Lan Wangji. Since when are you two so close? It really is curious why he went to such lengths to protect you that time on Dafa Mountain. No, the one Lan Wangji was protecting might not have been you. After all, there's no way the Lan clan of Gusu would forget what you did and what that loyal dog of yours have done. How could someone like him, so lauded for his manners and solemn righteousness, possibly tolerate you? Perhaps you share some sort of relationship with that body that you've stolen. Wei Wuxian finally snaps back. Hold your tongue. And then Jiang Cheng's like, oh, me? Hold my tongue? That's pretty rich from you. Didn't your mother teach you any manners? Who said that? Oh yeah, that was you. All that stuff people say about Jinling and behind his back all comes back to you, doesn't it? Remind me how his parents died exactly? Ouch. But then Jiang Cheng says, well, if you want to make it up to us, then come back to Lotus Pier. You can kneel before my parents' altar and take your time to think about what to say. Jiang Cheng's asking him to come home. Ah, my heart. Wei Wuxian's feelings are really complicated. He misses Lotus Pier, for sure, but the Lotus Pier he remembers was completely destroyed. Jiang Cheng's managed to rebuild it, but it's a different place now, fundamentally. Before the silence goes on for too long, Jinling comes back. Cleaned up now. And the most surprising thing, he actually covers for Wei Wuxian. He tells Jiang Cheng that he ran into Wen Ning, of all people, outside of town. That gets Jiang Cheng to leave. He leaves other Jiang disciples as well as Jinling here to make sure Wei Wuxian stays put, but Jinling sends the other disciples outside to guard the perimeter. Jinling is a good kid. Okay, let me try and explain his position. He cares about his uncle a lot, but Zheng Cheng has done this before. He's obsessed with tracking down this Wei guy. He'll capture these guys and interrogate them, but it never turns out to be Wei Wuxian. Jinling sees this situation as the same, even though this really is Wei Wuxian. Jinling doesn't know that. All he knows is that Mo Xianyu acts as shamelessly as the rumors say, and Zidian was unable to eject his soul, so he must not be possessed. He might not recognize Mo Xianyu as part of the Lanling Jin sect. He got kicked out of Carp Tower after all, but he can still acknowledge that he's from Lanling, and he'll let him go this one time. What are you standing around for? Are you waiting for my uncle to come and catch you? Let me make this clear. Don't think I'll be grateful for you just because you saved me, and don't expect me to say anything sappy either. Wei Wuxian strode over with his hands clasped behind his back. Young man, sometimes in life there are a few sappy things one must say. What? Jinling asked. Thank you, and I'm sorry, Wei Wuxian replied. Jinling clicked his tongue. Well, I refuse. What are you gonna do about it? There'll come a day when you'll say them through tears, Wei Wuxian said. Jinling scoffed, and Wei Wuxian suddenly said it himself. I'm sorry. Jinling was taken aback. What? For what I said to you back at Dafan Mountain. I'm sorry, Wei Wuxian said. It wasn't the first time Jinling had heard the accusation, "Mother didn't teach you manners," but no one had ever apologized so earnestly before. To be hit in the face with sorry left him not knowing what to feel, and surprisingly, he became altogether uncomfortable. He waved wildly and humped. It's nothing. It's not like you're the first person to say that anyways. It's true I don't have a mother, but I'm not any less than anyone just because of that. In any case, I'm gonna make everyone see clearly that I'm much stronger than all of you. Wei Wuxian smiled and was about to speak when his face suddenly changed colors. He exclaimed, stunned. Zheng Cheng, you... Jinling had stolen Zidian and released the man. He was already feeling jumpy. The moment he heard that name, he spun around in a hurry, and Wei Wuxian took the opportunity to hand-chop his neck. He laid Jinling down on the ground and rolled up his trouser cuff to inspect the curse mark on his leg. He tried a few methods, but none made the mark fade. While he couldn't dissolve the curse mark, he could transfer it to his own body. It was a while before Jinling slowly came to. He felt his neck, where slight pain still lingered. He was so angry he leapt up and pulled his sword on the spot. You actually hit me! Not even my uncle has hit me before. Wei Wuxian was shocked. Really? Didn't he say he was gonna break your legs? He's all talk, Jinling exclaimed furiously. You damn cut sleeve! What are you up to, Wei Wuxian hugged his head and cried at a target behind Jinling. Ah, Han Guanjun! Jinling was more scared of Han Guanjun than he was of his uncle, since his uncle was family, but Han Guanjun was not. Stricken, he turned and fled, yelling as he ran. Cursed lunatic! I'll remember this! We're not done! Wei Wuxian was laughing so hard at his retreat that he couldn't breathe. Once Jinling was gone, he felt a dull trickle in his chest. He coughed for a bit before slowly reining in his laughter. Only then did he have time to think upon other things. He thinks about how he was 9 years old when Jiang Fengmian found him on the streets, how all it took was an offered piece of melon to convince little Wei Ying to follow him, how Jiang Yanli told him that he had a smile that could overcome any sadness. Wei Wuxian thinks about a lot as he makes his way to the spot he and Lan Wangji decided to meet at. Lan Wangji is already there. He knows immediately about the curse mark on his leg, and he's worried. But Wei Wuxian brushes it off like, oh come on, I'll just blast it away if the spirit comes for me. Plus, I have the great Han Guanjun with me. That spirit should be afraid. Besides, they have to resolve the matter of the man-eating fortress. As they walk to yet another inn, Wei Wuxian really starts to feel the day's events. He got hit with Zidian again, and now he has this curse mark. His legs are really starting to feel like jelly. Lan Wangji notices him flagging and stops again. Lan Wangji offers to carry him. Also, he calls him Wei Ying, which I'm pretty sure it's the first time he's addressed him by any name in the real-time arc. Correct me if I'm wrong. Wei Wuxian declines the ride because it's too embarrassing, but Lan Wangji insists because Wei Wuxian once carried him on his back, so he can repay him now. Wei Wuxian doesn't remember carrying Lan Wangji, but I do, so we'll put that one on the pinboard. He declines him again. Lan Wangji absolutely does not need to carry Wei Wuxian on his back, so Lan Wangji picks him up bridal style instead. This is way more embarrassing, but he's already up here and Lan Wangji is already walking, so it is what it is. He plays with Lan Wangji's collars. He smells like sandalwood. He asks if Lan Wangji knew who he was on Dafan Mountain. He did. He asks if it's because of something he said to Jinling. Lan Wangji looks at him for a while, then says that if he didn't know, then Lan Wangji wasn't going to tell him. And then they're at the inn. Lan Wangji has his hands full, so he kicks the door open, and there's Nie Huaisang, the head shaker. Nie Huaisang was the one spreading the rumors about the man-eating fortress. But it was just to keep people away. That place is dangerous. It's actually his family tomb. Not for his ancestors themselves, but for their sabers. The Nie clan saber technique creates very powerful sword spirits. The wielder keeps the sword spirit suppressed, but after they die, no one can contain them. It's almost similar to demonic cultivation, except demonic cultivation involves consuming human lives to create resentment. The sabers only consume resentful ghosts and belligerent spirits. Nie Huaisang admits to knowing about the bodies in the walls. That was the 6th sect leader's idea. He realized that the swords needed evil to fight, so he gave it to them. He gathered hundreds of corpses on the brink of becoming resentful and buried them with the sword. It's become tradition ever since. The saber spirits suppress the transformation of those corpses, and at the same time, those corpses mollify the saber spirits' yearning and madness. And the rumors are not untrue. People have been eaten. Around 50 years ago, some bandits broke into the tombs looking for treasure. They didn't find anything because the swords weren't buried with anything valuable, but they did uncover some of the corpses. The robbers were able to defeat the corpses, ripping their bodies apart, but they were pulled into the tomb walls. The tombs are imbued with a very specific power. They know the exact number of bodies they need for whichever saber, and they keep them, not one less or one more. Jinling must have destroyed a body when he blew up the wall, so the tomb pulled him in to replace it. Nie Huaisang patrols that area often. He saw that a tomb had been broken open, but then a dog started barking at him and chasing him, so he ran. Wei Wuxian honestly feels bad for Nie Huaisang. He never fit well with the Nie Wei. Nie cultivators were supposed to be tough and fierce. Nie Huaisang was neither, but there was no way he could leave. He was sect leader now. He had no choice but to be useless. So they let him leave. Now that they're alone again, Lan Wangji starts fussing about his leg, and then the arm starts getting restless. More restless than usual. Okay, so there's a funny little part here. Lan Wangji's like, play properly. Wei Wuxian had been playing badly this whole time as part of his cover, but now it's clear that there's no need when it's just the two of them. Wei Wuxian's like, oh, but what if it's gotten so used to his bad playing? What if it won't rest if he plays properly? And then the arm gets even more worked up, as if to say, don't you dare, I've suffered enough. I just think it's funny. They play rest properly, and the arm goes quiet. But it's strange that it was more worked up today. The only thing that has changed is their location and the curse mark on Wei Wuxian's leg. Plus, the arm did lead them here. And after the story Nie Huaisang told them, they put the pieces together. Another part of its body must be buried in the walls. Early the next day, they return to Xinglu Ridge. They find Nie Huaisang there. He came last night with some trusted disciples to prepare the wall Jinling broke. They had just finished when Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji appeared. Damn. Wei Wuxian apologizes to him as Lan Wangji draws Bichen and cracks the work they just finished. Luckily, they have a pretty good idea of where the body might be. The mark on Jinling was very dark, meaning it must have been in close proximity to where he was buried in the wall. They won't break any more than that. None of the bodies they look at seem to be missing an arm, but maybe it's not the full thing. A leg. They start stripping the pants off to see, and Lan Wangji finds it. A leg carefully stitched onto one of the bodies. Both legs, actually. Nie Huaisang says he doesn't know how this could have happened. Someone must have snuck in somehow. And what happened to this man that someone would tear his body apart and hide each part separately? So many questions. The arm and legs seem to want to rejoin, but can't without its torso. It seems determined to put itself back together. The parts direct them to the southwest this time, and Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji set out once again. Their journey takes them to the city of Yueyang. After recovering a bit, the curse mark isn't hindering Wei Wuxian as much. He suspects he might not be able to remove it until their good buddy is fully put back together. There's still so much more to uncover with this conspiracy. They agree that there must be at least 2 groups involved. At the very least, the party who buried the legs has to be separate from the party who set the arm loose on Mo Manor. One was working carefully to conceal, and the other desperately to uncover. There's a small sect local to the city. Lan Wangji wants to go there, but Wei Wuxian disagrees. The sect is small and will probably be defensive against Lan Wangji, who is so clearly from one of the great sects. Also, the way Lan Wangji is so blunt and straightforward, yeah, the sect probably wouldn't tell them anything. Wei Wuxian suggests they go to the tavern district instead. Merchants always know the local gossip, and wine is a great way to find loose lips. Plus, Wei Wuxian will get to drink. Lan Wangji agrees and they head out. A man approaches them and offers a sample of his family's homebrewed wine. Wei Wuxian happily accepts. The guy says that the effects are very strong, and if you can drink it and still stand, then he'll change his surname to match yours. Challenge accepted. Wei Wuxian downs a cup, and the guy backtracks a little, like, oh no, I meant a whole jar, and then I'll change my name. And Wei Wuxian's like, great, bring us 3 jars. Lan Wangji pays for it. Wei Wuxian explains that this is their strategy. They'll patronize the shop and that waiter will give them information in return. And the waiter is really talkative. Wei Wuxian introduces them as cultivators and the guy is more than happy to pour the wine and the tea. It's a good thing they didn't go to that local sect. Didn't you hear? The Chang family ran the sect and they were all murdered inside their family estate. Truly terrible. It's said that they were all frightened to death. The family always locked their gate with a long bar on the inside. They say that the night of the slaughter, people could hear banging at the gate, like they were desperately trying to get out, but they never removed the bar. And though people could hear commotion, no one dared to go inside. What are normal people meant to do with the business of cultivators? No, best stay out of it. But then the bodies were discovered. Wei Wuxian asks if there are any suspects. Did the Chang clan have any major enemies? The waiter says he doesn't know, but the rumors say there's only one person strong enough to do it. The Yiling Patriarch. Yeah, okay. Needless to say, Wei Wuxian didn't murder those people. He didn't even know them. Plus, he was definitely dead when the murders took place. Being dead is a pretty solid alibi. Also, the waiter gets his name wrong. He calls the Yiling Patriarch Wei Wuqian, which my book tells me translates to Wei No Money. Okay, that's all there is to learn here. They need to investigate the estate. Wei Wuxian hasn't finished all the liquor they bought, but the waiter promises to keep it for them. Oh, but not before they settle the score. Wei Wuxian finished a full jar, and he can still stand. And the guy is honestly impressed. He asks Wei Wuxian for his surname, and Wei Wuxian has to think for a second. The guy knew about the Yiling Patriarch, even if he got the name wrong. Saying Wei might be too obvious, so Wei Wuxian tells him his name is Lan. There you go, that one's for you, Lan Zhan. Truth is, Lan Wangji was getting a little jealous sitting over there listening to the waiter being all chummy with Wei Wuxian. The guy even had the nerve to touch him. Lan Wangji glared at him the whole time. Whatever the waiter said jogged his memory, and Lan Wangji recalled everything he had heard about the Chang clan.
But first, some more exposition.
Wei Wuxian's father, Wei Changsi, was a servant at the Jiang house while Jiang Fengmian was growing up, which is how they were acquainted. Wei Wuxian's mother, Kangxi Shanren, was supposedly a student of Baoshan Sanren. In this world, though there are many great cultivators, very few can ascend to immortality. Baoshan Sanren was said to be one of those immortals, but no one had seen her in the secular world for generations. She was said to be a hermit living on a mountain. Kangxi Sanren left that mountain school to travel around and start a family with Wei Changsi. About 12 years ago, a bit after Wei Wuxian died, another person descended the mountain, claiming to be Baoshan Sanren's student. His name was Xiao Jingchen, and he would have been Wei Wuxian's martial uncle. So, Xiao Jingchen descended the mountain and made a name for himself. He was very righteous and strong. Pretty much every sect wanted him to join, but he declined, wishing to stay an unaffiliated wandering cultivator. But that didn't mean he wasn't on good terms. Even though he wasn't part of them, many sects would house him while he traveled, even invited him to come by, to ask for help, or just to visit. One of them was the Chang clan. He was devastated when they were murdered and rushed over to investigate. Someone had maliciously destroyed the family's protection array and let evil spirits in, but everything else was a mystery. Xiao Jingchen discovered evidence linking a suspect to the crime, Xu Yang. Xu Yang grew up in the area, on the streets, and he held a major grudge against the Chang patriarch. Xiao Jingchen had to cross 3 provinces to catch Xu Yang. He arrested him and brought him before the major sects for trial. Xiao Jingchen had laid down every piece of evidence clearly. Most of the clans had no objections. Only one clan opposed him vehemently, and it was the Jin clan of Lanling. Objecting under those circumstances would risk universal condemnation, said Wei Wuxian. Could Xu Yang have been a favorite of Jin Guangshan? A guest cultivator, Lan Wenzhi replied. He was their guest cultivator? Wei Wuxian asked. The Jin clan of Lanling should have ranked as one of the 4 major clans by then, right? Why invite that little thug to be a guest cultivator? This is the second connection, Lan Wenzhi said. He stared intently at Wei Wuxian's eyes and continued slowly. It was because of the Yin Tiger Tally. The Yin Tiger Tally was Wei Wuxian's most powerful and most deadly invention. Side note, if you consume some other Modao media and they talk about the Stygian tiger seal, that's the same thing. I got kind of confused too, but they're definitely the same thing. When just using his body as a conduit, Wei Wuxian inevitably hit limits and got tired. That's where the Yin Tiger Tally came in. He remembered seeing a sword inside a great beast, put a pin in that, retrieved it, and forged the tally. But it was so immensely powerful and devastating that he only used it twice, and both times resulted in massacres. After the second time, he decided that it needed to be destroyed. He managed to destroy half, but then the burial mounds were sieged before he could recover enough to finish what he started. Somehow, Xu Yang got a hold of the remaining half, and was able to reverse engineer the destroyed half, and Lan Lingjin was shielding him. Sponsoring him, even. Okay, lock in for some politics. So, at the time of this trial, almost all the major sects had been passed down to younger generations because of the war, especially Jiang Cheng, who was only 17 when he took over Yunmanjiang. All of them were younger, except Lan Lingjin. Jin Guangshan was still in charge and still being a man-whore. He was the one fighting for Xu Yang's release. All the other sects disagreed, the loudest being Nian Mingjue. It took convincing from both of his sworn brothers, Lan Zichen and Jin Guangyao, to stop him from drawing his saber and cutting Xu Yang down on the spot. The trial ended with a date set for Xu Yang's execution. It was only after the other sects had left that Lan Lingjin quietly changed the sentencing to imprisonment instead. When Nian Mingjue found out, he was furious. He demanded that Lan Lingjin hand Xu Yang over to Qing He, but he was declined over and over. All the other sects were starting to get nervous about another war breaking out when Nian Mingjue suddenly suffered a qi deviation and died, and Nie Huaisong could barely keep Qing He together, let alone fight Lan Lingjin. And then Jin Guangshan got even more unscrupulous, trying to pull Xu Yang out of jail to continue his research for the Yin Tiger Tally. And then he got to a surviving member of the Chang family, a key witness to Xu Yang's conviction. The witness suddenly changed his story and Xu Yang was released, and then the witness died. As expected, Xu Yang went and got revenge on Xiao Jingchen, but not by going after the man directly. Xu Yang destroyed the home of Xiao Jingchen's closest friend, Song Lan. He threw poison into Song Lan's eyes, blinding him. And with more experience this time, Xu Yang didn't leave any evidence behind. He had the protection of Lan Lingjin and Jin Guangshan. Xu Yang was untouchable. If you're wondering where Lan Wenzhi was for all of this, let's just say one lash from the discipline whip could be deadly. Judging from the number of scars on Lan Wenzhi's back, he must have been out of commission for many years. If you're wondering what happened to Xiao Jingchen, well, that's a whole other story. He felt so bad for what Song Lan had to suffer because of him, that he took him up the mountain to Baoshan Sanren. He told Song Lan that his teacher could heal his eyes. This was a lie. In truth, Xiao Jingchen gouged his own eyes out and gifted them to Song Lan. Wei Wuxian feels really bad hearing the story. If only Xiao Jingchen had descended the mountain a few years earlier. He thinks they could have been friends. I'm writing Wei Wuxian and Xiao Jingchen's shared convictions on the board and putting a pin in it. If you're wondering how the witness died, well, I'll get back to that in a second. Lan Wenzhi and Wei Wuxian heard a banging sound across the estate and are going to investigate. Someone is digging up one of the Chang graves. He looks to have thrown a body over his shoulder. The grave robber spots them, and they can get a good look in return. Or can they? The grave robber's face is obscured by dark fog, making his features indistinguishable. Lan Wangji draws Bichen, and the robber draws his own sword. Whatever disguise spell he is using to hide his face also conceals his weapon. Lan Wangji begins to fight, but the guy seems to be familiar with Gusu Lan's sword techniques, and is able to dodge even with a body on his back. And then, he pulls out a transport talisman. That's when Wei Wuxian jumps into the fight. He pulls out his flute and is able to get the other corpses to reach up from the ground and restrain the man. But the man is able to counter that too. He sends out a shockwave of spiritual energy and the corpse's hands are blasted off. But the corpse on his back is also sent flying. Lan Wangji catches it. Seeing that he was losing ground, the grave robber abandons his prize, activates the transport talisman, and disappears. They examine the corpse to find that it's not a corpse. Well, not mostly. The 4 limbs and the head are all made from sewing stuffed fabric like a doll, but the chest and abdomen were real and looked to be a match for their good buddy. They found another piece of the puzzle, both literally and figuratively. But it also left even more questions. Who was that? He was strong. He was probably one of the ones who hid the body to begin with, caught wind of Lan Wangji and Wei Wuxian trying to uncover it, and came to try and snatch it before they got here. But how was he so familiar with the Lan fighting style? That guy didn't seem familiar to Lan Wangji at all. And well, if the body hiders didn't know exactly who was trying to uncover their plot, they definitely did now. Oh well. They seal up the torso and head back to town. Wei Ying has some wine to finish, and I'll tell y'all about the mysterious death of the Cheng witness. So, he died, but also his eyes were dug out. And what's more, when his body was examined, they found that it was Xiao Jingchen's sword that killed him. It had the right qi signature and everything, but no one could find Xiao Jingchen. After giving his eyes to Song Lan, he went missing. People have tried summoning Xiao Jingchen's soul, but have found nothing, suggesting that he might still be alive. And that full story, I'm not going to put on the board. I'll just tell you right now that you're going to find out in Volume 2. But let's get back to our leads. There's still some fun to be had in these last 15 pages or so. Wei Wuxian offers Lan Wangji a cup of wine and he accepts. That's crazy because it's super against Lan rules to drink. Then again, Lan Wangji did have all those jars of Emperor's Smile in his room, but Lan Wangji denies opening a single one, and Wei Wuxian is left to wonder why he kept them. Oh well, there's no way Wei Wuxian's going to pass on the opportunity to see Lan Wangji drunk. He passes a cup over and Lan Wangji drinks it, and then immediately passes out. No wonder the Lan clan banned alcohol. This level of tolerance, or should I say lack of tolerance, was crazy. Oh well. Wei Wuxian hauls Lan Wangji to the nearest inn and lays him down to sleep it off. Then he escapes out to the edge of town and summons Wen Ning. He had been wanting to summon him since the incident on Dafan Mountain, but Lan Wangji was always with him. And even though he knows Lan Wangji knows that he's Wei Wuxian,
wow, what a sentence.
He still felt awkward summoning him in front of Lan Wangji. So he calls for Wen Ning and waits. And sure enough, Wen Ning appears. Okay, I have something to admit. I wanted to say it back during the Dafan Mountain scene, but it would have been hard to show it during that scene. Wen Ning is actually my absolute favorite character in Modao. I love him so much. On Dafan Mountain, he was just sort of a mindless attack monster, but that's not his character, trust me. Even now, he's not his usual self, as Wei Wuxian quickly assesses. His eyes are completely white and empty. Whoever was keeping him must have sealed his mind away. And sure enough, he finds metal nails on either side of his temples. Wei Wuxian carefully pulls them out and stores them for further research. Next, the chains. Wen Ning was immensely strong, so these chains must have been forged out of spiritual metal. He needs a spirit sword to cut it. Maybe he can borrow Bichen while Lan Wangji is napping. Poor Wen Ning. They told Wei Wuxian that Wen Ning's bones had been crushed into ashes. And yet, here he is. He was probably just suffering in captivity the whole time. Yeah, he's gonna go borrow Bichen. He turns around to do so, but oop, Lan Wangji is right there, and he's glaring at Wen Ning. Wen Ning is just standing there because Wei Wuxian ordered him to. Lan Wangji slaps Wen Ning. He looks about as shocked as a corpse under mind control can get, I suppose. And then Lan Wangji shouts at Wen Ning to go away. He says it a few times, and that's when Wei Wuxian notices. Lan Wangji's speech and actions are all very childish, and his forehead ribbon is crooked, and his shoes are on the wrong feet. He's drunk. Amazing. Normally, it's drink, get drunk, then pass out. But the mighty Hung Won-jun defies expectations yet again. He drinks, passes out, and then gets drunk. Wei Wuxian holds up 2 fingers. Lanjan, how many fingers? Lan Wangji just grabs his fingers, 1 in each fist. He's so cute. He dropped Bi Chen to hold Wei Wuxian's fingers, so Wei Wuxian picks it up and slings it over his own back. Then, Wei Wuxian turns to Wen Ning, but Lan Wangji objects again and steals the flute from Wei Wuxian. Finally, they go back to the inn. Wen Ning is silently following behind them, and Lan Wangji yells at him to go away again. Poor Wen Ning is getting bullied. Lan Wangji has the flute, so Wei Wuxian has to whistle at Wen Ning to leave and hide for a bit longer. Back at the inn, Wei Wuxian decides to mess with Lan Wangji a bit. He asks him questions. Did you ever drink the Emperor's Smile in your room? No. Do you like rabbits? Yes. Have you ever broken the rules? Yes. Is there anyone you like? Yes. Is it Jiangcheng? Is it Wen Ning? What about... And Wei Wuxian points at himself. Mine. And poor Wei Wuxian is confused. And he sure is going to come to his own conclusions. Lan Wangji must have been talking about Bi Chen that's still on Wei Wuxian's back. When Wei Wuxian walks around the room and Lan Wangji tracks his movements, he's still only thinking about Bi Chen, right? Wei Wuxian holds up the sword. Want it? I do. And then he grabs Wei Wuxian's arm. I do. Oh, Wei Wuxian is blushing. And then Lan Wangji grabs him and pulls him onto the bed. He pokes that acupoint on his back, and Wei Wuxian is stuck there. He tries to remind Lan Wangji that they have 2 rooms, but Lan Wangji just tells him that it's 9 p.m. and that means it's time for bed. And that was the first drunk scene. That's right, I said the first. There are more of these. Lan Wangji gets drunk 4 times during the entirety of Modao. Well, maybe it would be more accurate to say that he gets drunk 3 + 1 times. You'll see. Oh my god, I need to rant for a second. So, most of the Modao adaptations stick pretty close to the source material, really only cutting stuff for time or censorship. The Donghua changes the order of things so that they do the whole flashback arc in one go, as opposed to the novel that switches back and forth. But that doesn't really change any of the canon. The Untamed, though, has its own canon. The writers made some of their own choices and changes to suit their needs. For example, in The Untamed, Wei Wuxian is dead for 16 years instead of 13, so that the juniors can be a little bit older. Another example, Mo Xuanyu wears a mask instead of weird makeup. This is so they can use the same actor for when he's Wei Wuxian and Mo Xuanyu. And those are all fine. I actually really like that The Untamed tells a slightly different story. It's just more content. But there are some choices that they made that I don't like very much. One of them is how they introduce Lan Wangji's low alcohol tolerance. In The Untamed, during the Cloud Recesses lecture arc, Lan Wangji busts one of Wei Wuxian's parties with Jiang Cheng and Nie Huaisang. Wei Wuxian tricks him into drinking some too, and he passes out. And then the next morning, Lan Wangji reports that both he and Wei Wuxian broke the rules with alcohol, and they get punished, I think. It's been a minute since I watched it, but I really didn't like it. Wei Ying essentially roofies Lanjan, and then Lanjan gets punished? That sucks! In the book, all of the drunk scenes are Lanjan choosing to drink for various reasons. In this first one, he drinks because Wei Wuxian loves drinking and wants Lan Wangji to join him. Anyway, I still love The Untamed, but I just had to get that off my chest. The next morning, Lan Wangji falls out of bed. Poor guy doesn't remember what happened, and he's panicking a bit. And Wei Wuxian's not helping either, like, oh, Lanjan, don't you remember? You told me that you really, really love rabbits. And then Wei Wuxian rummages through Lan Wangji's robes that he's still wearing to grab his flute. Lan Wangji doesn't remember stealing the flute, but that's not important right now. The body parts are acting up. They have to play rest 3 times to get them all to calm down. Maybe because they have so many body parts now, or maybe because they're getting close to something. But the body parts seem to be acting out a lot more lately. Wei Wuxian decides to venture out for breakfast. He wants to give Lan Wangji some space to clean himself up and put himself back together. Something about getting drunk last night has Lan Wangji super flustered. by Lan Wangji standards anyway. Wei Wuxian gets some food and entertains himself by watching a bunch of kids playing in the street. Wei Wuxian used to play with Jiang Cheng and the other Jiang Jr. disciples like that. It makes him nostalgic and a little sad. These kids are play pretending the Sunshot campaign, which makes sense. Yueyang isn't far from where the Qishang Wen sect used to be. It's only natural that those closest would get the brunt of the bad treatment from the Wens and celebrated when they fell. And now these kids can pretend they are the bad guys in their games. They're chasing a little kite around, but the wind knocks it to the ground. The children stop the chase and gathered around, looking very troubled. They start discussing the situation at hand. What do we do? The sun hasn't even been shot, and it dropped on its own. Who will kill the big boss now? Someone raised their hand. It's gonna be me, of course. I'm Jing Guangyao. The Wen family's big villain was killed by me. Wei Wuxian sat there on the steps in front of the inn, watching with relish. Another child objected. I'm Nie Mingjue. I've won the most battles, and I've taken the biggest number of captives. I should be the big boss. Jing Guangyao said, but I'm chief cultivator. Nie Mingjue waved his fist. So what? You're still my son, Di. Don't you still have to run away with your tail between your legs at the sight of me? Jing Guangyao was indeed very into the act. He hunched his shoulders and ran off. Another one said, you short-lived devil. To have chosen a certain cultivation leader naturally meant the child in question probably looked up to and liked said cultivator. Nie Mingjue got mad. Jin Zixuan, you died sooner than me. You're even more short-lived. Jin Zixuan refused to yield. So what if I'm short-lived? I'm third-ranked. Just then, one of the kids seemed to tire of running and standing, and shuffled to the steps and sat down next to Wei Wuxian, waved and said, like a good old peacekeeper, Okay, stop fighting. I'm the Yiling Patriarch. I'm the most powerful. I suppose I can maybe be the big boss. Wei Wuxian was speechless. He looked down. Sure enough, this kid had a tiny, thin, wooden stick at his waist. This was probably Chen Qing. Only a small child would be simple enough not to fuss about the good and bad, and only care about ratings by strength, and therefore condescend to be the Yiling Patriarch for a bit. Another one countered, No, I'm Sandu Shengshou. I'm the most powerful one. Yiling Patriarch said very understandingly. Oh, Jiang Cheng, can you match me in anything? Haven't you lost to me every time? Where did you get the face to say that you're the most powerful? Aren't you just embarrassed? Jiang Cheng retorted. I can't match you. Don't you remember how you died? That shallow smile on Wei Wuxian's lips instantly dispersed. It was like being jabbed with an extremely poisonous little needle without warning. A slight, stabbing pain suddenly flared all over his body. The Yiling Patriarch next to him clapped. Look at me. Chen Qing in my left hand, and the Tiger Tally in my right. Plus, a ghost general. I'm invincible. Ha 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 ha. He raised a stick with his left hand and a rock in his right, then laughed maniacally. Where's Wen Ning? Come out. A small child raised his hand among the crowd and said meekly, I'm here. I want to say, since it's during the Sunshot campaign, I haven't died yet. Wei Wuxian felt he had to step in now. He spoke up. Cultivation leaders, may I ask a question? No adult had ever intervened when this group of children played this game before. And it wasn't even to scold, but to pose a serious question. Yiling Patriarch looked at him in wonder and caution. What's your question? How come there's no one from the Lang clan of Gusu? Wei Wuxian asked. There is. Where? Yiling Patriarch pointed at a child who had not spoken a single word throughout. That one's him. Wei Wuxian looked. Sure enough, that child was very delicately handsome, obviously solidly on the path to becoming an attractive young man. On his smooth forehead was fastened a white rope, a substitute for the forehead ribbon. Wei Wuxian asked, Who's he? Yiling Patriarch pursed his lips disdainfully, then said, Lan Wangji. All right, this group of children had truly captured the essence. One certainly should keep their mouth shut and not speak when playing Lan Wangji. The corners of Wei Wuxian's lips curled anew, all of a sudden. That extremely poisonous little needle was pulled out and tossed to an unknown corner, and the stabbing pain was all but swept away in an instant. Wei Wuxian mumbled to himself, Well, ain't that strange? How could such a dull person always make me so happy? When Lan Wangji finally came downstairs, he saw Wei Wuxian sitting on the steps with a bunch of kids sitting next to him and sharing meat buns. Wei Wuxian ate his bun as he directed two little kids pressed back to back in front of him. Right now, the ones in front of you are millions of Wen cultivators, every single one of them fully decked out in military gear. And they have you surrounded in an impenetrable circle. Look sharp. That's right, just like that. Good. Lan Wangji, pay attention. You're not your usual self right now. You're covered in blood. You're very heavy with killing intent. Your eyes fierce. Wei Wuxian, get closer to him. Do you know how to spin your flute? Let's see it. Spin it with one hand. Do it more nonchalantly. Do you understand what that means? Come here, let me show you. Wei Wuxian oohed and passed the little thin stick over to him. Wei Wuxian expertly twirled Cheng Xing with 2 fingers, and the group of kids crowded over in a flash, exclaiming aloud in awe. Lan Wangji silently approached. When Wei Wuxian saw him come over, he dusted off the dirt on his bum and bid farewell to the children. I wanted to end on that fluffy little moment. What did y'all think? Do you like MDZS so far? Are you intrigued? Hopefully, the way I explained things wasn't too confusing. This book makes way more sense if you already know everything that's going on, but you can't really know those things if you're reading it for the first time. I even confused myself a bit. I had to make a second document to serve as my pinboard, and I have all the things on there that I said I would get back to in later episodes so that I won't forget. So be ready for that. Anyway, this is getting long. I know I say that in almost every one of my episodes, but this one feels longer than usual. And if I look at my script page count, yep, definitely longer than usual. It's a good thing we're having fun, right? And, you know, the jukebox musical was so succinct, so maybe I just forgot how long it takes to get through these volumes. Waying's bad memories rubbing off on me. Well, until next time, stay away from all those soul-sacrificing arrays, and I think it'll be just fine. Bye!